What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Prophecy Misfits Podcast. This is episode 375. Woo-hoo! Shuffle the deck. And there's a lot of ripple effects and chain reactions currently happening right now that I think may or may not play a part in some future events and possibly some prophetic events that'll happen post-rapture. So definitely have some interesting things to discuss tonight, but welcome in. This is what we do on Tuesdays and Saturdays. We get together and we watch the crazy things that are happening around this world in these last days right now. The insanity is real. It's one of those things where I was just thinking yesterday, my brain doesn't shut off anymore, but I was just thinking yesterday, it's one of those situations where yesterday kind of felt like another shift into just another level of darkness around this world. And there's been a few times that I've felt that. And one of them, I know some other people also felt it, was January 1st, 2020, when that whole situation happened. I know some other people felt the same thing January 1st, 2025 at that time too. And I'm kind of feeling it again, specifically last night. It seems like there's a whole different shift into an insane darkness that's currently happening right now. And I don't know. It's an interesting feeling that to get for those who have had that before. But either way, welcome in. This is what we do, and glad to have you here. And we go over a bunch of different things that, again, we just try to figure out what the fact is, what the reality is, what the truth is, which is almost impossible to find nowadays in this world. That's why we can only put our faith and our hope in the truth, which is Jesus Christ. And so that's what we hang on to. That's who we hang on to with all this. But we still need to do our best to be watchmen, to pay attention to what's going on so we're not caught off guard when these things happen. And so, yeah, if you're new, welcome in. Glad to have you here. If you're old, well, you know how it works. So, but yeah, shuffle the deck. Plenty of things to discuss. I will admit up front, there's going to be a few things on this one that's going to be not fun to listen to, but it's stuff that we need to be aware of. So just a heads up beforehand on that. But we got some things to talk about regarding the U.S. Mint is dropping the olive branch from the eagle on the back of the dime for the 250th anniversary of the country, which is interesting. They left the arrows, which means they're prepared for war, but they got rid of the olive branch, which has to do with peace. Pretty interesting. So we'll talk about that. We also got some updates regarding the war situation. There's something in my eye that is bugging me, and I hope it goes away very soon. But yeah, updates on the war stuff. Cost of war is through the roof. We also got a situation where it looks like the Marines are heading in, boots on the ground. Possibly. We'll take a look at that as well, specifically regarding Karg Island. We'll talk about that as well. We also got some updates regarding leadership on both sides of the war that's currently happening. We'll talk about that as well. Censorship, fascist censorship being looked at, possibly implemented. We'll talk about that. We'll take a look at what's going on regarding something interesting in Sudan. Sudan is very important. They're specifically mentioned in scripture regarding a certain prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 38. And they don't seem to get looked at very often because everybody's keeping eyes on the big players. But this is important. So we'll talk about that as well, possibly playing a part. We're also going to take a look at what's going on with the Israeli front in Lebanon. It's turned from disastrous and we're entering catastrophic levels. We'll talk about that. Things that you're not going to hear in the Western media or from the pro-Israel church. Yeah, we'll talk about that stuff. We also got some updates regarding a situation with false flags. There may have been a false flag exposed before it was attempted. So we'll talk about that. It's worth keeping an eye on these things. For sure. So we'll talk about that as well. We also have some updates regarding Serbia and Cuba. Also some updates regarding a special National Guard unit that was deployed in D.C. We also have a whole bunch of the Trump administration, more of the Trump administration moving into military housing. A group of them did in the past. Looks like we got another one that's getting added over there. Another update on the VA. I'm getting tired of the VA updates because every single update that's coming out is how badly can this administration screw over the veterans? And we got another one of those situations. So we'll talk about that. Update on private credit situation. This is something we need to keep an eye on, folks. Also, some updates regarding Wall Street and corrupt government and so on and so forth. So plenty of things. So take your pick. Plenty of things that we're going to be talking about tonight. But anyways, hopefully everybody is doing well this evening. Thank you guys for joining me again. I appreciate it. It's been crazy few weeks. It's been a crazy couple of years, but specifically crazy few weeks. And I know some of you guys are hanging in there the whole time listening to all this stuff. And so just keep going. Keep your eyes on the Lord. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep going. I encourage you to do so. That's all I can say. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into, there we go, into some housekeeping, shall we?
Housekeeping?
No, thank you. Sleeping.
Housekeeping?
All right, usual spiel for housekeeping. If you guys can like, share, subscribe, certainly appreciate it. This is one of those channels where, again, we're not focused on trying to up the numbers, get as many clicks as possible. We're not interested in all that, but we are interested in getting the warning out to the best of our ability as possible. And liking, sharing, and subscribing certainly helps to do that, especially with YouTube and their wonderful system that's blocking any which way that this stuff can get out and whatnot. We are definitely in an uphill fight. I'll tell you what, most days it feels like I'm just beating my head against a brick wall trying to get this stuff out because everybody wants to go with the sensationalism and the clickbait and all that type of stuff. And so I understand the things that we talk about are not fun, but it's the important stuff. And so liking, sharing, and subscribing does help get that out to people. So please, if you guys can subscribe, I'd certainly appreciate it. Also, follow along on Rumble and Telegram if you have those available. Rumble's a backup channel that if I get booted off YouTube, we'll be back up live streaming over on there. And then Telegram, post updates, announcements, and other little things that I can't necessarily put in video format. I throw up on Telegram as well. So if you're interested and you have those programs, feel free to follow along. If not, no worries. Just make sure you guys bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. It's your one-stop shop to stay up to date on everything that's happening in this world of Wretched Watchmen-ing things. I don't know. But yeah, you'll find that over there. You'll find the latest podcasts and live streams. You'll find the announcement page, the free book to download, and all that jazz. So make sure you guys bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website so you're always in the know of what's happening. And then last but not least, if you guys would like to support this channel and what I got going on, I got donation links down below. CashApp, Venmo, and GiveSendGo. This channel is not monetized. I don't do subscriptions. I don't do memberships. I don't sell things. I don't do paywalls. I don't do any of that stuff. It needs to be free. It needs to be 100% free. This stuff needs to be for everybody, and we don't need to be restricting it. And we're able to do that because you guys are supportive. You guys donate. You guys pray, and you guys are awesome. And I thank all of you for that as well. I thank the Lord for you guys as well. So thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I do. All right. I'm running at half speed, so I apologize if I'm not my energetic self. But we got to do this. We got to keep going. We got to keep powering through all this stuff. And it is Saturday, which means we got ourselves the Wretched Weather Report. We haven't done this in a while, but I think we have enough time to do it. So let's go ahead and do the Wretched Weather Report.
Everybody got their fancy hats? Let's go!
All right, so the Wretched Weather Report, what we do is we keep track of the trends of what's going on with the weather and storms and earthquakes and all that type of stuff, just to keep an eye on what's going on. As we know, these are part of the birth pangs that will increase in size and frequency as we get closer and into the day of the Lord, so it is always worth keeping an eye on. Doesn't necessarily mean we need to hound it, but it's also something that it's good to keep an eye on. So this past week, as far as earthquakes, 5.5 magnitude and up, these are just kind of larger scale earthquakes that I think are worth keeping an ion. We have a 5.5 and probably one of the coolest names that I've ever seen coming across this before. A 5.5 in Zudachus, Greece. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'd like to live there. Then we also got a 5.9 in Hihofotanga, a 5.7 in Yamada, Japan, 5.9 in Vilinchchinsk, Russia. I don't know. 5.9 in Yakumo, Japan, a 6.0 in San Angelo, Italy, a 5.5 in the Kermadec Islands of New Zealand, and then the large one of the week was a 6.3 in Huasco, Chile. As far as volcanoes, we are sitting at 43 active volcanoes. We are just kind of just hovering below the usual global average, which is anywhere from 44 to 48. And we got 7 in North America, 5 in South America, 2 in Europe, 2 in Antarctica, 4 in Africa, 15 in Asia, and 8 in Oceania. So that's what we got as far as volcanoes. I believe there was a huge one that erupted in Hawaii as well. It was either this week or late last week. I think it was this week though. I believe so. But yeah, so I believe there's a huge one that just erupted in Hawaii. We also have this going on. I'm sure a lot of you that are in the northeast and the southeast and kind of the Midwest region, you guys have been paying attention specifically to the crazy tornadoes that are going through there. We got massive tornado warnings for the next 2 days. It's supposed to be hot this tomorrow, and then Monday is supposed to be crazy tornadoes and windstorms all over in the region. But I got this here. This is max velocity, and it says all severe tornado storm and tornado warnings so far this March. And it's quite a bit that's going on. So if you're in one of those regions, I'm sure you guys are paying attention, specifically if you're in Tornado Alley. It's been a very active tornado season for you guys right now. So again, supposed to be massive tornado warnings again for the next couple days, and then huge windstorms pretty much all the way from Texas all the way up to the Northeast. Massive windstorms coming through there. I think in some regions they're talking about like 70, 80 mile per hour winds. So keep that in mind as you go about your prayers tonight and tomorrow. Please be praying for those dealing with tornadoes. Tornadoes are not fun, extremely dangerous. Especially for cows. Pray for the cows. Just saying. And then we also have this monster blizzard set to blast central United States with severe winter storms. This is also coming up along with the craziness. A bunch of wind, and then possibly some major blizzard-like storms in central and northern part of the United States. So, again, crazy weather right now, but it is February or March. We're coming out of February. We should be slowing down, but we're not. We're speeding up when it comes to winter weather. So again, please be praying for those in those regions. Speaking of Hawaii, over 100,000 without power as major storm batters Hawaii. I've seen some video coming out about this, just flooding everywhere. Whole bunch of people without power. Again, I believe they just had that volcano eruption as well. This is a slow-moving storm is battering Hawaii with heavy rain, flash flooding, and damaging winds, knocking out power for more than 100,000 Hawaiian electric customers, including parts of Waikiki. Some streets also underwater. Again, I've seen some of those videos. Saw some videos where the Hawaiians decided to bust out their kayaks, and they're going down the main roads in their little kayak boats. Kid you not. When in Rome, right? So please be praying for those who are dealing with massive flooding and power outages. Hopefully nobody is hurt or killed because of this. I don't know if there's any reports as of yet, but please be praying for them as well. We also have this as well. Quite a bit going on as far as weather stuff, but this is in Gaza, Tent City. As you know, Gaza is pretty much just glass now. And so they got a whole bunch of tent cities set up, but now we have a massive sandstorm that's coming through. And I'll see if I can play this video here. So yeah, they're dealing with huge wind, major rain, and a sandstorm all at the same time. A lot of tents are getting blown over and people's temporary housing and stuff getting shut down and everything. So crazy, man. It's this is last days. I mean, this looks apocalyptic. That looks like something straight out of Mad Max right there. But yeah, so please be praying for those dealing with that too, because they don't even have their normal homes to shelter in. They have to use tents as far as that goes. So that is what we have that's what I have as far as the Wretched Weather Report. I know there's a ton of other stuff going on right now. I'm trying to keep an eye on the weather stuff the best I can. My attention's kind of getting dragged in other directions right now, obviously. But yeah, so be praying for all those affected by these things. So, all right, that's all we got as far as that. If you're aware of other weather-related things in your area, please put it in the comments or the chat so we know how to pray for you. We certainly appreciate it. I like when I see that, when because I know I got people all over the world and they're saying, well, our region's dealing with this, or we've got this going on over here. And it's cool because we can put it in the comments and stuff, and we can all pray for those regions because everybody's kind of coming in with that information. So keep them in prayer, y'all. All right, let's go ahead and move into this. Now, this is one of those things where, I don't know, is it a signal of some type? I'll just tell you guys what it is, and then you guys can come to your own conclusion, because I don't know. But this is very interesting that they would choose now, of all times, to remove the signal of peace on the money. It says the U.S. Mint just dropped the olive branch from the dime. What does that mean for the country? And so you guys can see the dime is indeed missing the olive branch that's supposed to be in this talon over here. He just has the arrows, which is the war, and the peace has been removed. Pretty interesting. So I can zoom in on this. Too far. There we go. It's the best I can make it. It says the U.S. Mint unveiled new designs for the country's 250th anniversary, and it left out one key detail: the olive branch from the newly designed dime. The new reverse depicts a bald eagle in flight, arrows gripped in its left talons, its right an open talon gripping thin air, and all beneath the description: liberty over tyranny. This is for a country that sure loves its symbols, which, if you guys know anything about the United States, yikes. I've mentioned this stuff in the past. We're not going to deep dive on it. I don't see a reason to, but my word, the symbolism of this country is built upon mysticism and mystery religion, and it's just wow. But for a country that sure loves its symbolism, the olive branch omission from the back of the dime raises some eyebrows. Charles Thompson, who shepherded the final design, was explicit. The arrows represented the power of war, the olive branch the power of peace, and together they carried a single message. The United States had a strong desire for peace, but would always be ready for war. That's why it's the heads facing the olive branch as opposed to the arrows. The eagle's head facing the olive branch was not incidental. It was a statement of national preference drawn directly from the olive branch petition in 1775, Congress's last diplomatic appeal to King George III before the war escalated beyond return. And so again, this is one of those things where I'll just leave it to you guys. Is this a signal of some type of what we can expect going forward, specifically the rest of 2026? Because as we know, the Trump administration being puppeteered by those of the table pretty much have burned that olive branch. And I'm surprised they didn't move the eagle's head to the arrows, because everything seems to be about war and dominance and reshaping the power structure of the entire world right in front of our eyes. So pretty interesting. I think it's something that we should be aware of, because while some people, I talked about this, I just did a video regarding a book that's kind of been making the rounds. But it's one of those things where we need to pay attention to some of this stuff. Some people take the symbology way too far, to the point where they literally think that they see a symbol in everything. And if anybody knows how that goes, you can make anything say whatever you want. That's how it works. But that does not mean that symbols and signals and those types of things are not used by those of the Luciferian and mystic variety. And so we definitely need to make sure that we're discernful regarding the symbology, but we also need to make sure that we recognize the symbology if it's put in front of us. And removing the olive branch, keeping the arrows as the United States turns into an empire of war, I think there might be something to that. But that's just me personally. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. Speaking of the war, let's go ahead and give a little bit of update regarding the situation with the war. It says Pentagon tells Congress first week of Iran war cost more than $11.3 billion. Now, again, these are official numbers, so take it with a giant salt lick that you would give to a horse. This is in the Capitol Hill briefing. Officials, and what I mean by that is it's probably much higher number than what they're telling. In a Capitol Hill briefing, officials gave their most comprehensive assessment of the cost of the first 6 days of the war, but the number omitted several aspects of the operation. Can I make that bigger? Here we go. This is Pentagon officials told lawmakers in a closed-door briefing on Capitol Hill on Tuesday that they estimated the cost of the war against Iran had exceeded $11.3 billion in the first 6 days alone. So all that money that they steal from you, that they pilfer from you, for those who work hard and then they go and jack all your money away for no reason, well, that's where this is going. So you are funding the bombardment of the Middle East war right now. How does that make you feel? The estimate did not include many of the costs associated with the operation, but as the buildup of military hardware and personnel ahead of the first strike. So this isn't even talking about the preparation of war that was happening for months. So you could probably triple this amount and probably still not have the total of what this has cost. The 11.3 is just since the start of the war, not the pregame that was going on. So keep that in mind. Says defense officials had said in recent congressional briefings that the military used up $5.6 billion of munitions in the first 2 days of the war. That is a far larger amount and munitions burn rate than had been publicly disclosed. The Center for Strategic and International Studies had estimated that the first 100 hours of the operation cost $3.7 billion or $891.4 million each day. Not to mention, we're not even talking about the munitions that they've burned through. Again, some retired high-up military officials, based on the information that they have said that they've burned through at least 5 or 6 years of munitions production in the first 3 days alone. 5 to 6 years of production burned in 3 days. Pretty significant. Pretty significant to say the least. So again, these are quote unquote official numbers. So again, we always take those with a grain of salt. However, it's still worth just having that information in the back of our mind when it comes to this. On top of that, Iran's cheap, plentiful weaponry puts U.S. military under unprecedented strain as the conflict extends towards a third week. An arsenal of attack drones and ballistic missiles has helped make Tehran unlike any adversary the U.S. has faced. And I've said this from the beginning, and it's something that, again, I know a lot of you guys see it, you recognize it, you know it, I understand that, but there's some people that don't seem to understand this. Iran is not some weak, wearing sandals and AKs, group of crazy, untrained military people. Iran has had, again, it goes way back, Persian times. They were the masters of warfare and science and all these things. They have the ability to do these things. And again, I'm not saying that to praise Iran or anything. It's just one of those things where, again, you just got to recognize what the truth is. And so this idea that so many Westerners, it's specifically the Westerners, thinking that this was going to be some cakewalk, like walking into Venezuela like they did, were sorely mistaken. So it's very interesting. There's some people that are starting to get it, finally. I see that. There's some of these comments and stuff where they're like, okay, maybe Iran is not who I thought they were. And it's like, okay, you're starting to get it. says, as the conflict extends towards a third week, the U.S. war effort is showing unexpected signs of strain against an adversary whose military budget is smaller than the GDP of Vermont, but which has an arsenal of missiles and drones unlike anything that the United States has ever faced. U.S. forces have been forced to dig in deep into inventories of expensive, hard-to-replace interceptors to counter the Iranian barrage. Again, we've talked about that, where they're having to use $4.6 million interceptors, up to 10 of them, to take down one ballistic missile that costs about $100,000. That's not a good cost-effective ratio if you know basic math when it comes to that. It says the United States led the long-range precision strike revolution, and this is the first war where they're seeing the adversary have that kind of capability. See Kelly Greco, a senior fellow at the Stimson Center. It's putting stress on the system that we haven't seen before. Tehran is still hitting valuable military installations and energy infrastructure across the Mideast daily. Now, you wouldn't recognize that according to Trump, who just today declared for the 6th time in 2 weeks that the United States has won the war against Iran. I don't know if you guys are paying attention to that, but for some reason, he has to come out every 2 days or every 3 days declaring that they've won the war, but yet the war keeps raging on and we continue to get information that more places are getting bombed and the war is only escalating and is extending past the initial start date. So which is it? Is it the obvious blatant lie that Big Cheeto over there is pumping out of his gigantic narcissistic mouth? Or is it really a whole lot worse than what we're being told, because we have internet and information blackout all over the Middle East, and we understand that everybody in this situation is lying through their teeth because they don't want to give away the truth of what's actually going on over there. So which one is it? I know which way I'm leaning on that one. I know which way I'm leaning. But again, that's for you to decide. Are you going to take your information from literally the most, I don't even know if it's a word, but you guys will understand what I'm saying, the most lyingest president ever in the history of the United States, which somebody has actually gone through and found that he publicly lies on an average rate of 21 times per day? Or are we going to go from the fact of we're getting a whole lot of bad information, but yet we're getting total information blackout because everybody wants to hide the damage that's been done to their territory? That's Iran, Israel, and the United States, and the Gulf states, all of them. I think that's where we should probably lean on that. And it says the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain has been struck by several ballistic missiles and Shaheds, a rare and Shaheds is a drone. A rare and expensive early warning radar in Qatar was destroyed, and a radar for $300 million THAAD batteries, a $300 million THAAD battery, and the most advanced ground-based mobile missile defense system in the U.S. inventory was hit in Jordan. Based on the pictures and the satellite imagery that we got before they locked all that down, Iran decimated the radar systems all across the Middle East, which is why their drones and their missiles have been so effective. It's because they took that stuff out pretty quickly. It says the U.S. hasn't provided an estimate of how much the campaign is costing, but discussions of as much as $50 billion in additional funding are already underway in Congress. We talked about that. That was a few days ago that report came out. But yeah, what we're being told and what we're being shown over there is, I just have this sinking feeling it's a lot worse over there. And it's interesting because we're getting told by, and this is what I'm talking about. It's easy stuff that if you use critical thinking and just don't base everything off of whatever you read, you can come to a conclusion that things aren't as they seem over there, because we're getting reports constantly from Israeli news saying that Iran is basically not launching any more missiles. There's really nothing coming in anymore, nothing to worry about. But yet we find that on social media, Mike Huckabee is posting that he had to go to the shelter again because of incoming Iranian missiles. So again, which what is the reality here? All of this is what I'm just trying to make sure that we're on the same page of, again, and I pretty much have said this every single episode since this whole thing started, but it's true. The first thing to die in war is the truth. And so we need to make sure that we're being careful. We need to be careful. That doesn't mean we don't collect information and hold on to it and kind of piece things together and figure out that way through critical thinking and whatnot, and compare and contrast and do all those things. But it's also one of those things that we need to make sure that we're not just blatantly believing everything that's coming out. Like, it's one of those things, and I'll just be upfront and honest with you guys. One of the most frustrating things that I have to deal with day in and day out is constantly seeing Christians and pastors out there that clearly have an agenda at what they want to believe. And so they outright reject anything that is critical or damages what they believe. And yet anything that supports it, they're out there just willing to pump it to everybody as it's the factual truth. And it's one of the most frustrating things, because I'm watching these people that just don't want to see the reality of what's going on. And most of my frustration and my irritation comes from the pastors that are clearly either on the payroll or trying to push this stuff because that's what their subscribers donate to them for, or buy their merchandise, or pay for keys past their paywalls and stuff. And so in order to keep those people and to keep the money flowing in, they have to push this stuff. And it's just straight propaganda. It's just, these people are just pushing propaganda. These pastors are pushing propaganda, and it's so frustrating and it's so irritating watching this. And it's just, what do you do? You know, what do you do with that? Do you just do what we continue to do? And those who have ears to hear and are willing to actually listen and kind of think for themselves, I guess they'll come to the brook and drink the water. But for the other horses, they're just going to run the other direction. I don't know. That's the only thing I can say in regards to that. But it's another one of those thoughts that I had just recently was, at this point, the whole facade, the whole mask of this just absolute snarling, disastrous monster of what we have seen regarding the governments around the world. The mask has come off on them, and it's clear as day. And if you cannot see it now, you're never going to see it. And it's one of those things where if you cannot see it now, these are, as far as the Christian church goes, the ones that are proclaiming that they know the answer and the truth, and they're going along and believing what that snarling monster is doing and supporting it, are the ones that will fall for the Antichrist deception when it comes in. Even though they're the first ones out there saying, beware, don't be deceived. It's funny, James Cadiz just put out a video about deception today, which is funny because he's clearly a propagandist and his entire thing is to deceive people. But yet he's putting out videos not to deceive people, like Jack Hibbs did with his Days of Deception. It's like, dude, that's what you're doing, is you are deceiving people. It's interesting how that works. But anyways, that's my little rant. It's just, it's hard to watch, man. It's really hard to watch. All right. Let's take a look at what's going on as far as this, because this might be an early indicator of the escalation happening in the Middle East on this. U.S. deploys 5,000 additional Marines and sailors to the Middle East amid intensifying Iran conflict. They're sending in the Marines, y'all, and this might be an indicator that we're about to have boots on the ground. The United States is deploying roughly 5,000 additional Marines and sailors to the Middle East as the war involving Iran intensifies. The deployment includes an amphibious ready group and Marine expeditionary unit, comprising around 2,500 Marines and 2,500 sailors. The Marines assigned to the deployment are part of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit based in Japan, so they're pulling more units out of the the Asian side of the world to send to the Middle East, and the unit is the United States Marine Corps' only permanently forward deployed Marine Expeditionary Unit. The sailors are attached to the Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group, which includes 3 ships: the USS Tripoli, the USS San Diego, and the USS New Orleans. And so it looks like they're getting these guys ready, specifically since they are the expeditionary group and they are amphibious. This is probably the best group that they can send in to get the first forward progress of actual boots on the ground moving forward. That doesn't include the special forces units and intelligence units that we know are already operating in there, which they don't tell us about, but we know that they're already in there. But yeah, this is definitely worth keeping an eye on. Probably their target is going to be Karg Island. Now, we don't know that for sure. Some people are saying they're going to land on the Strait of Hormuz coastline. There's no way they're getting in there. They have a chance to land in Karg Island, specifically because they have the Osprey helicopter, plane helicopter combo things that they have. I don't know officially what they're categorized as, but they're like planes, but they have helicopter propellers, and it's interesting. But there's a chance that they could land on Karg Island. And if you guys know Karg Island, that's Iran's where 90% of their oil production lays is on Karg Island. And the United States just recently hit military targets on Iran's Karg Island, which could be preparing for the Marines to go in. Now, from what I understand, it'll take roughly about a week and a half, 2 weeks before the Marines get there. So it might be a few weeks before that stuff actually starts happening. Since President Donald Trump said the U.S. has bombed military targets on a critical Iranian outpost in the Persian Gulf and threatened additional strikes targeting oil infrastructure in Tehran, continued to block energy flows. Excuse me. Wow. Tickle in my throat. Pictures posted on social media showed Mr. Ali Larijani. He's still alive and kicking. The Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council and several government ministers participating in rallies on March 13th. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there's a huge rally, pro-Islamic rally in the streets of Tehran and other cities in Iran, where a whole bunch of people were taken to the streets and a whole bunch of the regime's counselors, including Larijani, were marching with the people during all of that. Says Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei on March 12th said the Islamic Republic would seek to ensure the Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed. Mr. Hegseth and Iran's Supreme Leader was likely disfigured in the U.S.-Israeli operation, and the fact that he only released a written public statement suggests that his injuries prevented him from making public appearances. U.S. Central Command in a statement said all 6 crew members aboard a U.S. refueling aircraft that crashed in the western Iraq on March 12th were killed, and the loss of the plane was not due to enemy or friendly fire, the military said. So a couple of things to make note on this, going back up to Karg Island. If they do choose to land these Marines on Karg Island and attempt to take the island, it is such an easy target for Iran to blow to smithereens if they wanted to. So I'm not sure how they would protect the Marines, or if Iran would strike at all, since it is their oil infrastructure, but it is something to pay attention to. It's an easy target if the United States was to put military official or military personnel on the island. As far as Mojtaba Khamenei, obviously people have seen that he has not been publicly seen since basically the first strike of this whole thing. He's been reclusive and hidden the entire time. There's rumors out there saying that he's dead. There's rumors out there saying that he's in a coma. There's rumors out there saying he's alive and just hiding. We don't necessarily know the situation regarding him. So all I can tell you is don't jump to conclusions, specifically when it comes to people who are alive or dead, specifically leaders. I will say, if anybody knows how Islam works in regards to their leaders, and this is one of those things where maybe they're throwing a big curveball, but again, they tend to go with how their religion operates, is when leadership dies, they're very public when that leader dies. They are. Iran has always been very upfront when leadership dies, especially in war, because it's an honor for most of them if they do die in combat or dying for their Islamic faith or whatever They want to do it just like Ali Khamenei. When he was killed, he was deemed a martyr, and he was actually behind the scenes talking about, it's like, is my day of martyrdom actually going to come? Well, now he's burning in hell with his false idea of 72 virgins. But still, it's something that they announced publicly. So if Mojtaba is actually dead and they haven't announced it, that's very odd for them, because that goes against what they believe. If he's still alive, whether functioning or in a coma, depending on what rumor is what, it would make sense that they wouldn't announce that, but it would make sense that he wouldn't be publicly seen either, in either case, coma or functioning. So something to keep in mind on that. Again, we need to make sure when we're paying attention to what's going on, specifically things coming out of Iran, is we need to think in the direction that they do, which has to do with based upon their beliefs. Most people, specifically in the West, always just think military and government and just go off of that, but they operate much different. So it's something to keep in mind. The other thing to talk about real quick, talking about leaders and possibly being dead and whatnot, there's obviously a lot of people who have seen the rumors regarding Netanyahu possibly being dead or in the hospital, critically wounded, because of strikes that hit Ben Gvir, and there's rumors that his brother may have been killed in that strike, and other leadership in Israel may have been killed because of that strike and whatnot. We don't know. He's also been hidden too. He's also hiding. He's not publicly appearing. There's a video that came out, some public address that a lot of people are saying, see, he's still alive. But if you do a little digging around and whatnot, it looks pretty AI. Now, we don't know for sure, but it does look pretty AI in regards to that. So we don't know what's going on with Netanyahu. So it's one of those things where don't jump to conclusions. I see it everywhere. A rumor comes out. Somebody says, oh, that's interesting. And then they start going around the video after video, leaving comments. Did you see this? Did you see this? And that is how the rumor, which is unconfirmed, unvetted, we don't know, becomes truth, and it spreads like wildfire over there. So be careful. Don't take rumors and go to videos and say, did you hear? And then, because people automatically think that that's fact, and so they take it and run with it. And that's how all this stuff spreads. We don't know the situation of Mojtaba. We don't know the situation with Netanyahu. So information to keep in our memory banks, and just keep an eye going forward as the war goes forward. There was another thing I was going to talk about. Oh yeah. U.S. Central Command on a statement said all 6 crew members aboard the U.S. refueling aircraft that crashed in western Iraq on March 12th were killed. Again, I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that the United States is providing the actual details of all the wounded and killed in service. I think the numbers are much, much higher than they're telling us, specifically with all the information that we've talked about in the past and everything. Something tells me the numbers are a lot worse than what they're telling us. And they said the loss of the plane was not due to enemy or friendly fire, the military said. It's interesting. I'm starting to see quite a running theme when it comes to United States military assets, planes, ships, bases, any of those things. I'm starting to see a theme in regards to it, where they seem to be exploding and crashing and and they're catching on fire and all these things. But every single time it happens, it has nothing to do with actually being hit by anything, had nothing to do with enemy fire. They just happen to be random happenstances that are occurring in the middle of a war, which again, I don't think they're being truthful about that. Just like they said, the USS Gerald Ford had a massive fire break out on the ship because a laundry system went haywire. But yet, seriously, you're going to sit there and say that a massive fire broke out on a ship because of a laundry unit? I'm not buying it. Something probably happened. So again, I don't think they're being truthful on that. First thing that dies in war is truth. So it's pretty interesting that everything seems to be an issue that has nothing to do with the war, even though every issue that's occurring is that thing being involved in the war. Whole lot of accidents. Let's stick with Karg Island. So this is interesting. I always like going back in history. And Trump reportedly wants to seize Iran's Karg Island. He floated the idea 40 years ago. Trump called for the United States to take over the key Iranian oil export hub as early as 1988. Interesting. You know, we've noticed a theme for those who have been around my channel and have seen a lot of the stuff that I'm putting forward in regards to Trump and his connection to Russia in particular. All of these things that he was speaking about specifically in the late 80s and early 90s, and this was after he was already tapped to be a Russian asset. We went over all of that. Everything that he was speaking about during that time, he seems to be doing right now. Almost like, just hear me out, almost like there was a script ready to go for Donald Trump. And then when the time came, they would select him and put him in position to accomplish said script. Interesting. Interesting how that works. It says United States President Donald Trump mulled over taking over Iran's oil export hub, Karg Island, as a way to assert U.S. power in the Gulf and punish the Islamic Republic. That idea came to him nearly 40 years ago. I'd be harsh on Iran. They've been beating us psychologically, making us look like a bunch of fools, Trump told The Guardian in 1988. One bullet shot at one of our men or ships, and I'd do a number on Karg Island. I'd go in and take it, he added. Again, that was in an interview with The Guardian in 1988. The interview is notable now, as several news sites have reported U.S. and Israeli discussions about seizing the island, where Iran exports around 90% of its crude. Axios reported that the U.S. and Israel held discussions about seizing Karg Island last week. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to watch these things unfold. And if you pay attention, you can definitely see that a lot of this stuff was scripted many years ago, decades ago, and things continue to progress exactly as they were decided much longer ago. It's not a conspiracy theory, even though people want to say it's a conspiracy theory. And Donald Trump is not some savior disconnected from the globalists. He is part of it. Again, I continue to see that being pushed around in the church like crazy. Well, you don't have to like Donald Trump, but at least he's not part of the globalists. Just get a giant cone, put it on your head, and write dunce on it, if that's what you're rolling with. Again, I'm done playing the games of people trying to bounce around that. Again, the mask has come off. If you cannot see the monsters in front of your face right now, then you're going to get devoured. Simple as that. My word. Then we have this. U.S. intelligence says Iran government is not at risk of collapse. But again, we were just told today, for the 6th time in 2 weeks, by Donald Trump himself, that the war was already over. The U.S. intelligence indicates that Iran's leadership is still largely intact and is not at risk of collapse anytime soon after nearly 2 weeks of relentless U.S. and Israeli bombardment. A multitude of intelligence reports provide consistent analysis that the regime is not in danger of collapse and retains control of the Iranian public, said one of the sources. And it's true. There's key leadership. I've talked about this in the past. They have built their government, cleric, and military as a way to absorb damage. It's not like here in the United States that if you come in and take out a few key people at the top of our military, things start going haywire. The Iranian system is built to absorb damage. They take the damage. They have replacements already assigned, 4, 5, 6 people deep. And so as people get taken out, these people take those positions and they continue to move forward. And so when the initial strike happened and they took out all the leadership at the beginning, that was when they took out Khamenei and all them, The military went into their Mosaic system, which means all generals across Iran have a special system where they don't rely on upper command to tell them what to do, and they base everything upon it. They've moved past Mosaic again because they got their system back, their council back, and so they do have central command again, and so they're out of the Mosaic system. So they have withstood it, and now they're moving forward. And it also says the latest report was completed within the last few days. Israeli officials in closed discussions have also acknowledged there is no certainty that the war will lead to the clerical government's collapse, a senior Israeli official said. So even Israel is saying that this probably won't take out their leadership either, which is important because that's something that when this thing first started, we talked about this and we said, based on scripture, we know what has to happen in the future between these two countries, specifically Israel and Iran. They are both major proponents for future prophecy in coming up in the day of the Lord. So they can't be eliminated. They can't collapse. They can't turn into something that they're not, something entirely different that's not going to be ready for what's going to happen in the future. And so this is a case of we need to recognize that both of these countries will still be there. And it's one of those things where I think when it comes to the Iran side, this was the perfect chance to change out the top of the regime, the leadership, to something that's going to become much more aggressive towards Israel, because Ali Khamenei was not going to be it. And so this is their chance to change it out. And so, again, that's why I continue to see all these things out there. Again, I'll point out James Cadiz, him and his videos that he's putting out with his AI thumbnails saying Iran's about to collapse. Iran is collapsing. Iran's about done. And I'm sitting there going, no, they're not. But it's clickbait. It's sensationalist. It feeds his crowd, which gives them all the money. So again, we got to be very, very careful that we don't fall into that trap. As much as we know as Bible-believing, Christ-following Christians that the real Jewish people are going to, again, the time of Jacob's trouble, the 70th week there, is going to be that time for them to finally recognize Christ as their Savior and move forward. We understand that. We support those people. We understand and we recognize it. At the same time, we cannot let that cloud our ability to see the truth of the matter that's currently happening in the reality now. So many who are pro-Israel and support Israel, that's clouding their judgment. So anything that is critical of the Israeli government, anything that's showing that maybe they've taken a lot more damage than what they're willing to let on to, maybe the war and all that stuff is not going quite as they expected, they reject all of that simply because they have a biased view of Israel. We can't be that. We can't do that. God even warns, don't fall into that trap, because that is part of the deception of things. And so this is something that we, again, keep forefront. Most of you, I get it. You know this. I'm preaching to the choir. I know. But as just a reminder, we got to remember that. Keep that in mind. Okay. So we also have this as well. This is pretty interesting. I don't know if this is real or not. Might just be a propaganda tactic leaked out to the media, but it's pretty interesting. United States issues up to $10 million reward for information on Mojtaba Khamenei and Ali Larijani. So now they're putting out bounties for information regarding these two guys. Fascinating. It says the U.S. Department of State's Rewards for Justice program has called for information on Iranian terrorist leaders, including Mojtaba Khamenei. The State Department said that the reward is up to $10 million and said information could make people eligible for relocation. They're looking for the Minister of Intelligence, Ismail Khatib, Deputy Chief of Staff, Ali Asghar Hejazi, Major General Yaha Rahim Safavi, Brigade General Eskander Momeni, and Secretary to the Supreme Council, Ali Larijani. Well, I know where two of those guys were. They were marching in the streets with their pro-Iranian Islamic people yesterday. And it says, earlier today, Larijani joined the Al-Quds Day protest in Tehran and posted pictures of his participation. Interesting if they're offering information bounties on these guys. Coming along with that, if I can pull this up. Cool Frog has rated the stream. Thanks, Cool Frog. I think you did that last time. It says FCC chief threatens broadcasters as Trump criticizes coverage of Iran war. So now we have a threat from the FCC chief, who handles things like public broadcasting and radio, that if you do not cover the war as we want you to, then we're going to take your license away. Now, again, I know there's some Trump supporters and those who can't see what's happening with the government right now, but I'll just be upfront and I'll be honest with you. This is what we call fascism. Say it with me now. Fascism. So Trump and his administration are being fascist. I know, crazy, right? Brendan Carr, FCC chief, warned media outlets to correct course or lose their licenses as Trump escalated attacks on media over Iran war coverage. This Federal Communications Commission Chairman Brendan Carr issued a stern warning to broadcasters Saturday, threatening to revoke government-issued licenses if they run what the federal government agency deems fake news. The warning, alongside which Carr included a screenshot of a post by President Donald Trump weighing against legacy media coverage of the Iran war, was just the latest salvo from an official who, since becoming FCC chairman at the onset of Trump's second term, has relished in the role of media enforcer. Broadcasters that are running hoaxes and news distortions, also known as fake news, have a chance now to correct course before their license renewal comes up, Carr wrote on Twitter. The law is clear. Broadcasters must operate in the public interest. What he means is they must operate according to the propaganda that we want them to put out, and they will lose their licenses if they don't. This is the actual post that he put out, so this is legit. He's basically, again, calling for all broadcasters, if you do not post information on the war that we want you to that makes us look good, then we're going to go ahead and take your license away. Says Will Cayley, legal director of the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, called Carr's statement dangerous in a statement to the Washington Post. Brendan Carr's authoritarian warning that networks risk their broadcasting licenses for Iran war reporting that the government doesn't like is outrageous, Cayley said. When the government demands the press become a state mouthpiece under the threat of punishment, something has gone very wrong. Again, that's when you start seeing people like Newsmax, Real Voice America, Red State Media, TPUSA, Daily Wire, all those that signed on to that new Pentagon press agreement, Timcast, all those people like that. Those are the ones that are state media mouthpieces. Keep that in mind. Again, this is not defending legacy media because we know what they get used for as well. But I'm just letting you know, when you sign an actual deal in order to get access to the Pentagon, that you are required to only report what they want you to report, that's something to pay attention to. Carr's comments appear to build on a separate post Saturday by Trump on Truth Social, in which he condemned the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and other news outlets over their coverage of damage to U.S. military aircraft at a base in Saudi Arabia, calling them low-life papers and media, whose reporting amounted to wanting the United States to lose the war. Again, we literally have a FCC chief connected to the Trump administration that is currently telling public broadcasters that we're going to revoke your license if you don't promote or broadcast information that we want you to, or put us in a good light. So if you post anything, if you broadcast anything that makes us look bad or makes us look like we're losing, then we're going to take your license away. It's interesting. It's interesting because all the things that we were told that were going to happen if Kamala got in there, Trump is doing. Almost like, hear me out, I know this is crazy, they're all on the same team. It's... Oh, man, it's really not a hard thing to understand. But again, I think the main issue arises from Christians who just don't want to let go of the world. They have to hold on to the world. They have to hold on to the old system. They have to feel like they have the opportunity to change course of the world. But we should know as Christians, again, I don't necessarily like that term, so we should know as Bible-believing Christ followers that we can't change the course of where we're going right now. We're not called to. Even though some pastors like to take the salt and light verse out of context and apply it to things like voting and politics, it's not what that's there for. Our job is salt and light, and the scripture tells us clearly, what are the two responsibilities that we're supposed to have specifically right now? Warn people and make disciples. Share the gospel and make disciples. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's being salt and light. But for those who can't see that the two-party system is actually a single party that's being puppeteered by people much higher than them with direct access to Satan himself, they're still holding onto the world, even though they'll be the first one to tell you that they're not. It's a hard thing to do if you're still trapped on that, but I'm telling you, start to peel your fingers off the dirt and let go. Let go. Okay, so this is important. I want to bring this up because when it comes to the future coming prophecy, specifically when it comes to Ezekiel 38, yes, Ezekiel 38, there's so much emphasis being put on three major players. Obviously, you have Turkey, Iran, and Russia, northern Russia, depending on what you want to look at. But it's one of those things where, obviously, those are rather important, specifically Turkey, because in the list of countries that are going to get hooked into Israel, Turkey is listed multiple times in that, which is all of Turkey. But still, those are three main players. We understand that. But there's a couple other ones that tend to get overlooked, specifically with what's happening nowadays, because we hear all the time people asking, is this Ezekiel 38? Is this Ezekiel 38? Is this Ezekiel 38? It's not. It's not right now. But there's a couple other things that need to happen before that can take place. And one might be happening because of what is currently happening in the Middle East right now. Okay, what am I talking about? Iran strikes inside UAE fuel rapid collapse of genocidal RSF militia in Sudan. Now, if you guys don't know, since 2023, I believe, there has been a massive civil war in Sudan. Modern Sudan was old Ethiopia. So some of those who like to say, well, Ethiopia is going to be in there. It's going to be Sudan. Sudan needs to be in a place where they can get drawn into invading Israel. They can't do that right now because their entire country is in flames because of a civil war. The main faction that's involved with that receives funding, oil, weapons, and training from the UAE and Israel. Guess who's so busy right now with their supply lines cut off that they can't provide that stuff to the militia? Interesting. This is pretty important. Iran's retaliatory strikes on Israel and the UAE are contributing to a quick collapse of Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, a UAE-backed paramilitary group fighting in Sudan's civil war. With weapons and funding from the UAE and Israel, the RSF have been fighting the Sudanese Armed Forces, the SAF, since April 2023 in a war that has killed tens of thousands and forced 11 million people to flee their homes. But the UAE and Israel are seeing their supply lines to the RSF disrupted amid Iranian missile and drone strikes since the start of the U.S.-Israeli war on the Islamic Republic. Iranian attacks have closed the Strait of Hormuz, cutting off the UAE's shipping and oil export routes and causing severe economic losses. According to the Canary, the RSF had been making strong gains until February. However, Sudanese government forces have achieved a string of military victories that appear to be turning into a rout. In context, the Sudanese army announced on Thursday it had captured 2 areas in the Blue Nile region, the southeastern province that has been a heavy fighting since January. Military officials stated that the operation was part of a broader campaign to secure strategic locations in the southern sector. This is something to keep an eye on. Now, this doesn't mean that this is going to end tomorrow or next week or in a month from now. This is something that will probably take a minute to clear all of this out. But with the supply lines from UAE and Israel cut off to that military group, the rebels there in Sudan, this allows the Sudanese military to go in and start taking territories, clearing them out, and getting the country back. I won't say stable because it's just not going to be stable, but in a better place than they currently are right now, and in a place where they would be more readily available to join that invasion into Israel, like we're told that they're going to. So again, this is one of those things where it's not really being reported. You kind of have to go digging into some of these news places because the West isn't going to talk about it. But for us who are paying attention to what's going on, this is key. This is key because Sudan, along with Libya, are 2 very important players for the Ezekiel 38 war. We also have this. This is a Sudan Tribune here. It says Sudan Army says it seized 2 areas in Blue Nile region. It says the Sudanese army said on Thursday it had seized control of 2 areas in the Blue Nile region, marking a significant advance in the southeastern province, where fighting has escalated since January. The southern and western sectors of the Blue Nile province have been in a surge in violence this year, and the escalation comes amid heightened diplomatic tensions. The Sudanese government has previously accused neighboring Ethiopia of allowing the territory to be used as a base for drone strikes against Sudanese targets. Recent media reports have also alleged that the training camps for RSF elements and foreign fighters have been established in Ethiopian funding from the United Arab Emirates. Both Ethiopia and the UAE have previously denied involvement with the Sudanese conflict. Of course they have. They're not going to be honest about that. It says the military command said that the recent territorial gains are aimed at securing border villages and restoring stability to areas displaced by the fighting. Keep an eye on Sudan, because we might start seeing more progression of them taking their region back. And again, I don't want to use the word stable because it's not going to be stable, but it's going to be in a better place than what they are now. And so this is something to keep an eye on going forward. All right. Everybody good? I know we just kind of shuffled through. Get it? Because the title is Shuffle the Deck. Kind of shuffled through a bunch of stuff, but just we got a lot of stuff to cover, so I'm just trying to get through it. Hopefully everybody's hanging in there, doing all right. Splenda. Oh, Splendid. Splenda? It was like your fake sugar? Is that what you are? Anyways. All right. We're going to go ahead and move into what's going on as far as the Israel and Lebanon side of things. Lebanon, Hezbollah, Israel, all that situation. This is one of those... I am fake sugar. Anyways. I don't know why. I'm glad you rolled with that, though. It was just kind of random. This is one of those things I talked about at the beginning, that there's going to be some hard stuff to hear. But it's one of those things where, again, this was a thought that I was having just last night. I try to have a few of those every now and then. There was a thought that I was having last night, though, where, again, I'm feeling like we have a new shift in darkness that's happening right now. But it's something that's been happening a lot recently, where it just seems like as we go along, the dark events, the sinister events, and the everything that's happening around the world right now, we're starting to see how there's some things that are happening that we have to be willing to adjust and adjust our thinking to and accept, even though it's hard to hear sometimes. It's hard to comprehend, and we just need to be willing to understand the times that we're in these last days where, again, the darkness that is just enveloping this entire world right now. And we know that we're entering into a time where the sinfulness of man has escalated back to days of Noah and days of Lot. And the little information that we really have about those times, we understand just how dark and evil and sinister the people were back then. And we have to understand that this is the world that we live in now. And it's just not a good place to be, where we're not necessarily seeing good versus bad, light versus darkness necessarily. We're just seeing a whole bunch of fallen men going and attacking other fallen men. I don't know how else to say it, but this is going to be kind of one of those things. It's going to be hard as we go through some of this stuff, but it's stuff that I think we need to be aware of, just so we know the reality of this situation that's currently happening right now. And so we start here. It says Israel signals possible Lebanon ground offensive. It's pretty much confirmed at this point that Israel is preparing to do a massive ground offensive into Lebanon, as hundreds killed in strikes. It says Israeli airstrikes have intensified across Lebanon as officials signal a possible ground offensive where more than 820,000 people are displaced. And this is just a picture from Beirut, by the way. It says Israeli airstrikes across Lebanon intensified on Friday as Israeli leaders signaled a potential expansion of the war, which has already killed at least 687 people. I think it's up to 720 something now. Over 100 children have been killed, and has displaced more than 800,000 people, including the possibility of a ground offensive inside Lebanese territory. Israel's security cabinet reportedly indicated that it could potentially launch ground operation within days. Discussion in Israel's security establishment have included the possibility of expanding ground operations as far north as the Litani River. On Friday, Israel dropped a large number of leaflets over Beirut calling on the Lebanese people to disarm Hezbollah, Iran's shield, and telling them that Lebanon is your decision, not someone else's. Notably, the leaflets contained a QR code which raises concerns that it could be used to hack Lebanese phones, prompting experts to warn people not to scan the code. Okay, we'll get to the rest of it in just a second. So what's going on? If you guys don't know the situation over there, to put it very simply, again, there's a lot of groups, but to put it very simply, you have Lebanon, who's not friendly with Israel. They won't recognize Israel. They've never recognized Israel. They won't do it. They're not friendly with them, but they're also, this is the Lebanese government, but they're also not really at war with Israel at the same time. So it's just kind of that situation. Then you have Hezbollah, who has just entrenched themselves within Lebanon. And Lebanon, because their military and their government is so weak and just, they're pathetic. They really are. If you're Lebanese, I'm sorry, but the leadership in Lebanon is pathetic. They allowed Hezbollah to go in there and gain a foothold. And basically take over territory and start launching attacks into Israel from their territory. They haven't really done anything to stop them. The Lebanese government hasn't really done anything to stop them. But now we have Israel that's looking to go in and start cleaning house with Hezbollah. You have al-Shara, who's the ISIS leader that Trump said that he selected and put into the leadership of Syria. They're building up on their side to go into the northern side of Lebanon. And now the Lebanese government, because they're kind of caught in the middle of it since they're so weak, they're saying, okay, we'll help you take out Hezbollah. So that's the situation that's currently happening. And so what we have going on is Israel has just been hammering southern Lebanon, just airstrike after airstrike, just leveling things. And you got to remember that there's Hezbollah in there, but there's innocent people as well. And so we're watching what's going on. The same thing that happened in Gaza is starting to show its head of what's happening in Lebanon. Now you have the argument from one side, and I understand it, that's technically Greater Israel. That's their land. If you want to go back to the biblical times, which is how we should view it, that belongs to Israel too. While that is true, there's still people there. So we can't lose our humanity about it. That's why there's so many pro-Israel people saying, yeah, just bomb them to kingdom come. And I think it's disgusting that they do that, because there are innocent lives there that we need to make sure that we're accounting for. And so that's where this whole thing happens, where you got a lot of chaos and a lot of darkness happening on both sides when it comes to it. As far as the leaflets with QR codes, I tend to agree with the Lebanese government on this one, saying don't scan that thing, because look at what they've done and Israel's done in the past when it comes to technology. I wouldn't trust it either. All right, now that we got that all cleared up, hopefully everybody understands. I know there's a lot of people that do understand, but for those who may just needed a crash course. Says Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz warned that that Israel could seize territory inside Lebanon if Hezbollah attacks continue. I warned the president of Lebanon that if the Lebanese government does not know how to control the territory and prevent Hezbollah from threatening the northern communities and firing at Israel, we will take the territory and do it ourselves. Katz said during an assessment with senior Israel army officers. Israeli airstrikes continue to hit areas across Lebanon, including Beirut, southern Lebanon, and Bekaa Valley. According to the Lebanese Authority, Israeli attacks over the past 2 weeks have killed at least 687 people. Again, I think it's up to 720 now, including 98 children. It's above 100 children now as well. Israeli evacuation orders now cover around 13% of Lebanon's territory, including parts of Beirut's southern suburbs and areas in the Bekaa Valley. Lebanese authorities say that more than 820,000 people have registered as displaced out of the total population of around 5.3 million. About 125,000 people are currently staying in public shelters, while others are sleeping in schools, facilities run by international organizations, cars on the streets, or with acquaintances. They also set up tent cities on a beach. Israel bombed that beach too, killing like 12 people, injuring a whole bunch of people as well, which there was really no reason to do that, so I don't know why they did. But yeah, so we have that's currently going on. Then we also have this. They escalated their threats to Hezbollah in Lebanon. It says Israel destroys bridge in Lebanon, threatens Gaza-scale destruction. It says Israel destroyed a bridge in southern Lebanon on Friday, dropped leaflets in Beirut threatening Gaza-style devastation, and warned of more attacks on the country's infrastructure as Hezbollah's leadership remained defiant. Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem said Israel's threats to assassinate him were worthless in a speech on Friday. We have been prepared ourselves for a long confrontation, and they will be surprised in the field, he said. Israel has deployed more troops to the northern border with Lebanon and has signaled it is planning for a long campaign. There's been a lot of insane airstrikes, or not airstrikes, rocket strikes coming from Hezbollah from Lebanon. Things that Israel has never seen before. I went over that on Tuesday. Today's Saturday. Yeah, Tuesday, where they said the response that we've received from Hezbollah has been something that we've never seen before. They're launching barrages of 100 to 200 rockets at a time. And so they have that issue. And as much as reports are telling you that it's not happening, it is happening. Iron Dome is failing significantly against those, which is why they're doing this ground operation right now. Again, it's a whole mess over there. It says Israel's military said it struck the Zaria Bridge spanning the Litani River early on Friday, claiming it was being used by Hezbollah militants to move between Lebanon's north and south. The military provided no evidence of the claim. The Lebanese government will pay increasing costs through damage to infrastructure and loss of territory until Hezbollah is disarmed, Defense Minister Israel Katz said on a statement. That's the bridge right there. It's one of the main bridges, main infrastructure in Lebanon. It says Lebanon's government has sought to disarm Hezbollah. Okay, not until Israel put their foot on their keister. And the country's army has said before that the war that progresses had been made in areas near the Israeli border. On March 2nd, the Lebanese government banned military activities by Hezbollah, which has refused to fully disarm. Israeli aircraft dropped flyers over Beirut threatening to inflict damage on Lebanon, similar to the devastation that the military wrought on Gaza during its 2-year war with Hamas. Much of the Gaza has been reduced to rubble and nearly all of its population displaced. Again, I showed a video of that sandstorm where it's just tent cities now. I don't know. Curious. For those watching, have you guys actually taken an opportunity to go look at the pictures of what Gaza looks like right now? I'm just curious, because I have, and I don't know if anybody's actually taken the opportunity to go look at what it looks like. To take a look at the pictures before and after. You can find satellite imagery of before and after. If you haven't, go do so. It's easy to find. And they're legit pictures. Gaza is glass. And I'm not kidding you. It is just entirely flattened now. And so you're going to understand, again, if you're somebody who watches some of those other pastors, the Prophecy Mafia pastors, they're going to make it seem like it was no big deal. They had to go in there and do that. It's nothing, no big issue. But they don't ever show pictures of the before and after. Go take a look. Go take a look. And you'll see. They're threatening to do the same thing to Lebanon. Just keep that in mind. The Lebanese state reported on Friday that the drone struck. Oh, yeah, this is right here. Lebanon state media reported on Friday that a drone struck a residential apartment in Beirut's Borj Hamoud district on the northern outskirts of the Lebanese capital. It was the first time in the war that Beirut's predominantly Christian northern suburbs have been hit, as Israel appears to be widening its targets. On Wednesday night, Hezbollah, right here, this is what caused all this. Wednesday night, Hezbollah launched 200 rockets at northern Israeli communities, something that they didn't really do before. There was a whole bunch of rockets before, but they're putting out huge barrages. And so you gotta do something, but at the same time, if you're just going in and leveling everything, there's other innocent humans that live there. And so we got to keep that in mind going forward. We just, it's it's kind of hard because it's sometimes I feel like I'm just repeating myself, but again, it's something that we got to remember where we're at, the position that we're at here in the Western world. A lot of us can't necessarily do anything about anything that's going on over there except pray. And so sometimes we just need to make sure that we're praying. I've caught myself where it's like, sometimes I feel like I'm a broken record in my prayer life. Sometimes I just keep repeating the same prayer over and over, and I kind of forget that I need to be a little bit more active in that. That's something that I deal with. I'm sure all of us get in ruts like that every once in a while. But in this case, we know the situation is currently happening with the Iran war, but we're not getting much report here in the Western world about the Lebanon situation. Keep that in mind as you pray. Keep those people in prayer. And there's a lot of innocent lives there. There's quite a few Christians that live in Lebanon too. I don't know if people realize that. So keep all of them in prayer, specifically those who are unsaved, that they rush to Jesus. They find Jesus. Pray for the Christian communities that are being displaced and now being passed around in certain shelters with these unsaved people, that they'll have the opportunity to share the gospel with the people. Give them the boldness to do so. That's also important things that we should be praying for when it comes to that. So just something to keep in mind, just kind of a reminder for those regarding our prayer life on that. So yeah, just kind of want to put that forward too. There was another thing too that I think might be kind of cool to mention with all of this, because it was a conversation that I was having with my dad, and it just kind of brought a topic to my head when we were talking about it, because it was the question of those who God knows ahead of time, and this is one of those things where, of course, we have the fight between specifically the Calvinists and the Arminians, but it's in the middle. But there's the question of, well, God knows ahead of time who's going to give their life to the Lord. That He knows ahead of time who's going to become saved and who's going to come to Jesus and who's not. Not choosing, He knows. Again, there's free will. We have that ability. So He knows ahead of time. He knows every hair on our head. He knows the prophecy. He knows the end from the beginning. He knows who's going to accept the Lord and who's not. And so that question comes up, will somebody ever die before they have the opportunity to accept salvation through Jesus? Well, the answer is no. Because if God knows that person's going to be saved, that person knows that he's going to come to the Lord, then no. that person will not die before then. So in situations like this, where we know that there's war that's happening and people being killed, are any of those people being killed, were they, if they didn't die in that situation, were they ever going to come to the Lord? Well, the chances are no, because the Lord's not going to allow them to die before that. And so that's where that talk, there's always the argument of, well, is there free will or is God sovereign? Well, the thing is both. They work hand in hand together perfectly. Where if God knows ahead of time who's going to be saved, based on free will, God's sovereignty is going to protect that person until they do give their life to the Lord. That's why I always say when your ticket's pulled or your ticket's punched, because it's all based upon that. So that's one of those things that's kind of an interesting topic. That's something that a lot of people argue over, which is a pretty simple concept, I think, if you just think about the characteristics of God, because that's what it all boils down to, that all that can be answered. So it's one of those things where this is the opportunity. And I always talk about this. Tragedy is the best opportunity for people to come to the Lord. And so with all of this happening, this is the perfect opportunity for the Christians over in that area, the war-torn area, to step up and be the ambassadors for Christ. And those who are going to come to the Lord, this is probably their opportunity to do so. So be praying for not only those lives that are being dismantled right now over in that region, but also be praying for the Christians over there where this is their time to shine as ambassadors for Christ. So just wanted to put that forward because I think it's a good reminder, good conversation. So, all right. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on with this one. This is not a fun story, by the way. Yeah, I already know that there's going to be people because they can't seem to understand what those verses mean. When it says the only ones that come to the Father are drawn, that's because God knows ahead of time. That has nothing to do with God only picked and choose a few people. He's not going to create a whole bunch of people and then wish and then hand select a few and go, I'm only going to save this many, and then go and kill all of these other ones. Why would he make them? That would make God a monster. So for those who believe in that, you are literally making God a monster by saying he's creating people that he knows he's not going to save and he's going to send them to burn in hell forever. That's against God's characteristics. So again, don't take that verse out of context. Those who God draws are the ones he knows based upon free will choose him. So again, don't take that verse out of context. That's the main verse that they always go to, and all I say is, great, you're making God a monster. Congratulations. Yeah. Okay. I'm not even going to get into that one. All right. Patrick Starr, you tried a second time and you still couldn't spell it right. What are you doing, man? Oh, funny stuff. Citizen of Heaven, this is your warning. Don't push it, because if you continue down that argument, we will take away your right to comment. Don't push it. We're not going there. So, mods, keep an eye on him. We're not getting into that argument. I'm putting my foot down right now on that one. We're not going there. My word. Anyways. All right, so let's take a look at this one. This is not a great story, but it's something that, again, is something that I don't believe gets covered, because we seem to have this idea, be nice. Oh, I'm being nice, but again, I'm being forward on this one. Has nothing to do with being nice. I always love it. Talk overreacting. No, defending scripture and making sure that it's not convoluted in a twisting way is not overreacting. Again, if you guys want to go ahead and get into this argument, we can. I'll put this whole thing on pause right now and start going to town on this one. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. This overreacting when it comes to defending what the gospel actually is, that's not happening. So getting back to this. All right, Doulos, you're out, man. You know, if this is how it's going to be, we're not going there. We're not going there, okay? If you, and there's this thing about here, I don't allow the twisting of scripture and then those who get in their feelings when they get called out on it. That's not how it works, okay? If you want to go out there and twist scripture into something that it's not for your personal benefit, you go out there and do it, but it's not going to be accepted here. And then if we tell you, don't go there, and then you continue to argue and then get butthurt about it, then you're gone. Simple as that. You can still watch. You just won't be able to comment because we're not putting up with it. Has nothing to do with being nice. It has to do with the fact of defending what the Bible actually says. Like, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Yeah. Has nothing to do with, be nice. Well, look at the status of the church now. That's what being nice gets you. So. Well, congratulations, citizen. I don't care. You know, I just don't care. You can disagree all you want. Again, I know I have a whole bunch of people who watch who don't agree on things, and we don't all agree on everything. That's great. I have no issue with that. But when it's not appropriate to start putting that stuff in the chat, and when my moderators tell you don't do it, and then you continue to defy that, then you're going to lose your privilege to communicate. This is not the place to argue. A YouTube chat, social media posts is not a place to argue. Nothing gets accomplished. Everything gets convoluted. People get angry, and it's trash. That's why social media is, I always say it's a cesspool, is because you cannot argue this stuff in a chat with limited text and no ability to actually vocally communicate. And it's best that you recognize that before you start causing more problems in other places. It's as simple as that. You know, I've been very upfront about that for a long time when it comes to this is not the time or place to argue those things. It's just not. You want to have a conversation vocally on the phone, real life, something like that, where things cannot be convoluted and taken out of context and whatnot, you're more than welcome to. But when you start something in the chat and we say don't do it, and then you defy it, you're going to lose the access to the chat. So it's as simple as that. Okay. Let's keep going. Now that we've had this break here. See, I knew it was going to happen. Bringing up something so simple as the character of God, and yet it causes a fight. It's amazing. Something so simple, the character of God, which the scripture is very clearly plain about, and that's what causes a fight. No wonder the church is the way it is. No wonder. No wonder we can't come together on anything, because we can't even come together on what the characteristics of God is. Anyways, okay, this is a very interesting story to get back on track with, but we're going to do it anyways because we need to talk about it. So this is one of those situations where, again, we're starting to see just the sinful, depraved humanity of us, of humans, when it comes to what's happening here. Now, we hear all about the atrocities that happen when it comes to what the terrorists do, what Islam does to their prisoners, and what Hamas does and everything like that. But something that seems to be covered up, which it didn't get covered up this time, is something that this military does. And again, the United States military does it too. There's plenty of stories that you guys can go read about the atrocities that they've done. Chinese military, Russian military, the Ukraine military, all these militaries do. And so these guys aren't exempt either. It says Israeli military drops charges against soldiers accused of sexually assaulting Palestinian detainee. It goes much worse than that. It says Israel's military on Thursday said it was dropping charges against 5 soldiers accused of beating and sexually abusing a Palestinian detainee in an alleged assault partially caught on camera. The decision, which came as much as the country's attention was focused on the war with Iran, closed a flashpoint case that was bitterly divided Israel since the soldiers were arrested in 2024 at the notorious Sid Timan military prison, prompting anger from members of the far-right government and hardline ultranationalists who violently overran the prison in protest. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed the announcement, while human rights groups accused the military of ignoring one of the gravest instances of abuse in the country's network of wartime prisons. Netanyahu welcomed the decision, saying that the state of Israel must pursue its enemies, not its heroic fighters. And this is where it gets really bad. It says, the now dismissed indictment against the soldiers accused them of an assault that included dragging a Palestinian prisoner, a male Palestinian prisoner, along the floor, stepping on him, tasering him, and sexually assaulting him by stabbing him in the rectum. They sodomized him with a knife. Palestinian was taken to an Israeli hospital with fractured ribs and a perforated rectum and required surgery before he returned to the prison. I saw the video of this thing. It's something that you just don't forget. The allegations of abuse at the facility gained steam when in August of 2024, Israeli news broadcasted a leaked video of the alleged assault. The video showed a group of masked soldiers wrestling a detainee to the ground, where he and other Palestinians were laying face down and handcuffed in a fenced-in pen and taking the detainee to an area of the pen they considered where they cordoned off using shields. In the Thursday decision dismissing the case, the military's top legal officer said that the charges against the soldiers were being dropped because the video did not show abuse violent enough to merit a criminal conviction that had been improperly leaked to the media. I saw the video. It's pretty clear, and they're saying that that is not violent enough to merit an actual conviction. So they're letting him off. In November 2025, after much speculation about the leaked video got out, military advocate General Yifat Tomer Yeshurlami, I'm not sure, the top legal official in the military, admitted that she had approved its release, saying that she wanted to show how serious the abuse was and convince people the military had a duty to investigate. Facing an uproar from Netanyahu's government, she abruptly resigned and then disappeared, only to be found phoneless on a Tel Aviv beach after a frantic search by authorities. The phone, believed to hold possible evidence against her, was later recovered in the sea. So we have a situation where, clear as day, atrocious thing that these 5 soldiers did. Netanyahu's administration deemed it unworthy to be convicted, so they dropped all the charges, and then they're now going after the lady who put the video out for people to see and saying that she's the problem. This sounds a lot like what we see here in the United States when it comes to what people do here, where as long as they're connected to the Trump administration, they're free to go. But anybody who's a political opponent that stands against them is instantly, well, here it's a domestic terrorist. It's one of those things that we have to recognize, even though we get told one way or another that, well, this person is well, these people over here are better than these people, and these people don't do these things that those people do. The fact is we live in a sinful, fallen world where there is these people in every part of it. And we understand in Scripture the descriptors of what these last days are going to look like, what people are going to look like in these last days. Some of them are, one of them's brutal. People will become brutal. And this is what we're seeing all over. Whether they're terrorists, whether they're organized government, whether they're paramilitary, people have become brutal. And they do these things. Another sign of the times that we're currently living in right now. Another sign of the times. All right, let's keep going. So I'm sure a lot of you guys saw this as well. Temple Israel attack. Gunman fatally shot himself in the head during gunfight with security. So this was the situation where a dude drove his car through the front doors of a synagogue in Michigan. I'm sure some of you guys saw the reports about this. As law enforcement officials revealed more details of a gunman's attack on the Temple Israel of West Bloomfield, the largest Reformed synagogue in North America, Thursday. Ayman Mohammed Ghazali, I think that's how you say, fatally shot himself after crashing his Ford F-150 through the front doors in his vehicle and engaging security in a firefight, the FBI said Friday. Ghazali, 41, was armed and had a large quantity of commercial-grade fireworks and several jugs of flammable liquid believed to be the gasoline at the time of the attack. Daycare classes with children 5 years old and younger were being held at the time. No students or staff of the synagogue were injured, with the exception of a security guard who was hit by the truck and knocked unconscious. So praise the Lord that none of the kids were hurt in regards to this. That could have been much worse. It says the Dearborn Heights man sat in the parking lot from 10 a.m. to noon before ramming his truck into the southeast end of the synagogue at noon central, striking a security guard in the process. Runyon, who's the special agent in charge of the FBI investigation, Runyon said that Ghazali's truck was jammed into the hallway and he could not get out. The man then started shooting through the windshield. He then traded shots through the back window with the security guard. At some point during the gunfight, Ghazali suffered a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head, probably realizing that he was not getting out of that in any way. The motivation behind the attack is still under investigation. We already know what it is, but the Dearborn Heights mayor released a statement last night that says Ghazali had lost several members of his own family, including his niece and nephew, in the Israeli attack on his home in Lebanon. And that's really the situation. That's, as far as what we know, what happened is he's somebody who went crazy and probably got pushed over the edge. If I could say anything, there's a lot of people in this world right now that are so close to that edge that if anything happens to something close to them like that, they could be pushed over just like that and snap like this guy appeared to do. Doesn't justify what he did, but we're in a tightly spun up world right now with people. Officials said Ghazali was born in Lebanon in 1985 and entered the U.S. on May 10th, 2011 on an IR-1 immigrant visa as the spouse of a U.S. citizen. Ghazali applied for naturalization on October 20th, 2015 and became a U.S. citizen on February 5th, 2016. So we have this situation right now. And probably expect to see more. Whether they are legit or whether there might be a false flag attached to them, we don't know. But I would say that there's probably going to be more of these situations currently happening right now. I need to make sure that we put this out there because it's probably going to get spun, especially tomorrow, by some of these pastors, that this is about the Israeli sleeper cells Islam sleeper cells. And that's the narrative that's been getting pounded and pounded and pounded We see it in the media. We see it coming from the prophecy mafia groups. We see it all over. We continue to see this getting propped up in all these podcasts and everything like that. Why do I keep saying that? Islamic sleeper cells, Iranian sleeper cells. We continue to see it over and over and over again. And it's one of those things where we've kind of paid attention and followed the trend of what's going on. If anything's going to happen, it's going to be a false flag. It's going to be a false flag. Having one dude go and do something like this is not a sleeper cell. I hope people realize that. That's not a sleeper cell. That's, again, somebody who snapped. And so these guys snap a lot. But it's something that I've noticed from the very beginning of this whole Iranian situation, because there was several statements that came out from the Iranian government side of things, including Ali Larijani, who came out and said, our war is not with the American public. They clarified that at the beginning of this thing. I don't know if people saw that. I think I mentioned it, but they said it. Our war is not with the American public. Their statement said our war is with the American government and Israel. They said that's where their thing is. But yet we continue to get told that this Iranian sleeper cell is going to come alive in the United States and start going to town, even though they're saying that's not what our focus is right now. And again, based it upon not government, but based it upon their belief structure. If they're saying that their war is these people over here, not the public, then they're going to tell you that. Unlike a lot of these terrorists that they come out and say, we're going to kill you. So it's kind of the opposite. It's pretty interesting how that works if you're willing to kind of piece things together. So that's something to keep in mind. If something comes out, it's going to be a false flag. And there's a chance that we may have seen one of those false flags may have been exposed and stopped before it began. Now, something I want to point out is FBI Detroit. This is straight from the FBI Detroit account. This was on January 30th, 2026. FBI Detroit led an active shooter attack prevention and preparedness training for the clergy and staff of the Temple Israel in West Bloomfield. The FBI course combines lessons learned from years of research and employs scenario-based exercises to help participants practice in decision-making in the process of run, hide, fight principles, and so on and so forth. Very interesting that just a few weeks ago, on January 30th, 2026, the FBI held an active shooter training op at the exact same synagogue that was just attacked. I'm not saying that that's connected in any way, but I am saying it's pretty interesting that just happened. So just keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to these apparent sleeper cells that are here in the United States, Trump was just asked, this was yesterday, was just asked about these sleeper cells. Let's hear what Trump has to say. This is about a 39-minute clip. About 39-second clip. We're not going to watch a 39-minute clip. Everybody calm down. This is about a 39-second clip. About 30 seconds of it is Trump attacking Biden, of course. But listen to the other 9 seconds, and you'll see what's going on.
They try to hit us back. Have you been briefed about how many Iran sleeper cells there could be inside the U.S. right now?
I have been, and a lot of people came in through Biden with this stupid open border. But we know where most of them are. We've got our eye on all of them, I think.
If it doesn't...
Did you hear what he had to say? He said, what's about the Iranian sleeper cell situation? He says, we know who they are. We have our eyes on all of them. Well, if that's the case, why haven't they gone and arrested them? If you know who they are and you know where they're at, and you're keeping an eye on them, why have you not gone and arrested them?
They they try to hit us back, have you been briefed about how many Iran sleeper cells there could be inside the U.S. right now?
I have been, and a lot of people came in through Biden with this stupid open border. But we know where most of them are. We've got our eye on all of them, I think.
Is it dozens?
They came in through the open border policies of Sleepy Joe Biden, one of the worst president in the history of our country.
Lincoln and FDR would like to have a word with you on that one.
And we've got our eyes on all of them, but the war itself is being prosecuted at a level that nobody's seen before. It's pretty amazing to watch.
He said it twice. We've got our eyes on all of them. Okay, well, if you do, why haven't you arrested them yet? Well, I think I know why. I think I have the answer for that one. Because if we go back to 2016, how many of you guys remember the Garland shooter? You guys remember that one? Well, if we go back here, FBI agent goaded Garland shooter to tear up Texas, raising new alarms about Bureau's methods. An undercover FBI agent egged on a would-be terrorist shortly after he opened fire on a Texas cartoon contest. Again, this was in 2015, raising new doubts about the Bureau's approach to cozying up to its targets. So, we go back in time, we have a proven through court documents a display here of FBI agents who are there to just keep an eye on potential terrorists, and they happen to be goading said terrorists to go and commit terrorist acts. So if Trump is saying that they've got an eye, they know where all these sleeper cells are, and they're keeping an eye on them, at what point is one of the government officials going to egg them on to commit a terrorist act like they've done in the past? Says in a revelation that an undercover FBI agent encouraged a would-be terrorist to tear up Texas shortly after he opened fire on a Draw Mohammed cartoon contest in Garland, Texas last year, raises new concerns about FBI counterterrorism efforts that were already under fire for manufacturing terrorism cases rather than halting them. Manufacturing terrorist cases rather than halting them. And we've had months and months of propaganda coming out from the Trump administration about Iranian sleeper cells. Almost like they're preparing for something, wouldn't you say? According to an affidavit filed in a related case last week, Elton Simpson, one of the two men who donned body armor and fired assault weapons before being shot dead by a Garland police officer, had been corresponding with an undercover FBI agent. And in a text message roughly a week before the attack, as they discussed the cartoon contest, the agent had exhorted Simpson to tear up Texas. The FBI uses informants and undercover agents to pressure suspected ISIS sympathizers into committing acts of violence so that they can then be prosecuted. The Garland shooter case is the most striking illustration yet of the dangers of this approach, says Aaron Kundani, a lecturer on terrorism studies in New York University. Essentially, it suggests that the government may be manufacturing the very threat it's supposed to be countering. Though sting operations are generally seen as an appropriate tool for infiltrating criminal organizations or conspiracies, their use is more problematic in contemporary terrorism cases involving isolated individuals. In those cases, the concern is that the informant or undercover agent could plant the idea to actually conduct an attack in the mind of a suggestible or unstable person. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot of history that says that this is not a one-off, this is not a two-off, this is not a three-off, but something that the United States government has been doing for decades. Decades. This is just one of the things that I have seen when it comes to this quote-unquote Iranian sleeper cell situation even though Iran says we're not interested in that. But yet we keep getting pushed this propaganda week in and week out. Every week, the Prophecy Mafia is talking about this, pushing it. Why? Because I think they're being told to. It goes along with their agenda. But I'm more on the side of this is to happen. I think you're looking at a false flag. And again, I think it's something that we may have seen exposed before it was getting ready. When the FBI warns Iran aspired to attack California with drones in retaliation for the war. Did you guys see this alert? They even had such a big alert that my mom, who's still in California, texted me asking me about this. And I said, don't worry about it. That's right. There was a big alert about some type of drone attack from Iran in California. It says the FBI warned police departments in California in recent days that Iran would retaliate for American attacks by launching drones at the West Coast. We recently acquired unverified information that as of February 2026, Iran allegedly aspired to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, from an unidentified vessel off the coast of the United States homeland, specifically against unspecified targets in California, in the event that the U.S. conducted strikes against Iran. According to the alert distributed at the end of February, we have no additional information at the timing, method, target, or perpetrators of this alleged attack. So they left the door wide open for an opportunity to pull off a false flag. It says the information about Iran's aspirations for a surprise drone attack on the West Coast came before the United States and Israel launched strikes against Iran, and a senior law enforcement official said it's believed the 12-day bombardment has severely degraded Iran's capabilities to carry out such an attack. So, according to their timeline, they're saying that they have unspecified, unverified reports that Iran had a drone boat that they couldn't find off the coast of California as a deterrent to stop the U.S. and Israel from striking Iran in the war. But because they struck, that boat that just happens to be parked off the California, which they don't know is there, is too weak to strike California. Are you guys, again, you guys seeing how this doesn't make any sense? So because United States and Israel struck Iran, the boat sitting off the coast, which is unverified, that they can't find, is too weak to strike California. What? That doesn't make any sense. Especially when we look at Carolyn Levitt, who responded to this exact article and said, to be clear, no such threat from Iran to our homeland exists, and it never did. So if that threat from Iran to the homeland of the United States never existed, then why did Trump and Pete Hegseth come out and say that they started the war with Iran because Iran was getting ready to strike the homeland? You guys seeing this now? You see it? For those who still trust and follow Trump, that I know there's some of you that watch. Glad to have you here. Don't go away. I hope you're starting to get it now. I hope this is starting to show you. Because what we have is we literally have a case of Schrodinger's Iran. You guys know Schrodinger's cat, that quantum physics theory of if you take a cat and you lock it in a box, it is both alive and dead because it's not being monitored. So we have a case of Schrodinger's Iran happening here. According to America, Iran is weak and vulnerable, and the regime will collapse at any moment. And Iran is so powerful and evil, it can strike California. Because that's what the United States government is wanting you to believe, is Schrodinger's Iran. So weak that it's about to collapse, and so powerful, it's going to strike California. Even though Carolyn Leavitt said that there was no such threat to our homeland and it never existed. Again, this is not me putting words in anybody's mouth. This is not me making anything up. This is literally showing you how absolutely absurd this whole situation is. Add on to the fact that we have this: U.S. Army offers up to $5,000 reward for information after 4 drones stolen from Fort Campbell in Kentucky. Back in November, 4 drones were stolen from a U.S. base. They were looking for $5,000, or they were offering a $5,000 reward for any information about it. Then this just happens to pop up immediately after the warning about Iran striking California with drones. This was March 12th that this came out. So this just happens to pop up, even though this was reported back in November. It says the Department of Army Criminal Investigation Division is offering up to $5,000 in exchange for a tip that yields the arrest and conviction of those who stole several drones. The stolen items were seen at Fort Campbell in Kentucky in November, the department noted in a flyer. The Department of Army Criminal Investigation Division is offering a reward of up to $5,000 for information leading to the arrest and convictions of the persons responsible for the theft of 4 Skydio X-10D drone systems, the department indicated. What's fascinating is the drones that were stolen are not weaponized, and the people who stole them are actual military personnel that had access to the building. Because if we scroll way down here, the release explains that the theft does not pose a threat, as the drones were only outfitted with small cameras. These drones were stolen from a locked storage area with secured government building. The individuals responsible had authorized access to the military installation and the building, and they defeated the locks on the storage cages to perpetrate this theft. This was a targeted act, not a random breach of security, the release notes. The 101st Airborne Division takes the accountability and security of personnel and equipment seriously. The building in question has since replaced the doors and locks that were burglarized. This incident remains an ongoing investigation. They got caught. They were building a backstory for something. They were preparing for something. A false flag. And they got caught. And it required Carolyn Leavitt to come out and publicly say, no, this is all false. There's no threat. There never was. They were getting ready to plan something. And they were going to do it in California. It's amazing. It's amazing to watch this, because at this point, I certainly hope that you're seeing that this government is willing to kill and decimate anybody who lives here and anybody who lives outside of it in order to move things forward according to the puppet masters. And Trump is playing his part. Just like all these others are playing their parts. Putin and Xi and Netanyahu and you just take a pick. They're playing their parts. So, just to be clear, my position, and I'm not telling you what to believe, you're free to believe whatever you want to. But my position on this whole Iranian sleeper cell thing is that they are planning to do a false flag to blame it on them. Whether that's to bring in martial law in this country to postpone selections, whether that's to give an excuse to put boots on the ground in Iran, whether it's something else that we haven't even thought about, a different angle to all of this. But if they do it, my first thought is going to be, this is planned. This was orchestrated. That's my position on it. I've held that position from the beginning. Those who have been here know that. Anyways. All right, a couple other things on this before we get out of war talk, because we got a couple other things non-war related. Just to make you aware, we don't really have any details on this yet, but it's worth keeping an eye on. The Serbian president said that Croatia and Albania are preparing for an attack on Serbia. Says Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić said that Croatia, Albania, and the self-proclaimed Republic of Kosovo are preparing an attack on the country. In an interview with RTS, he referred to the tripartite declaration as the defense cooperation signed by these parties in Tirana on March 18th, 2025. The document, according to Vučić, is aimed at strengthening military ties and creating an alliance against Serbia. They form an alliance to attack us. They are waiting for the conflict between Russia and Europe to escalate, as well as for the moment when a larger war breaks out in the Middle East. They are waiting for the worldwide chaos to allow them to do this, said Serbian president. Now, we don't have any information on this. Is this legit? Are they arming up to attack Serbia? Maybe. Is this something that's being made up by the Serbian president for maybe something in the future? Maybe. We don't have any information on this. Again, our goal is to speculate or try and put something together that we don't have anything that we can do that with. Just keep it in mind so we're not caught off guard, and we'll see if anything brews further regarding this situation. Either way, I think it's something to keep an eye on. It's interesting he mentioned if Russia makes further moves on Europe. Interesting line, interesting information he gave on that. So something to keep in mind. I don't have anything else on it. I didn't see anything else on it, so we'll see. We also have this, keeping an eye on Cuba. Protesters in Cuba attacked Communist Party office in rare riot over blackouts. It says anti-government protesters attacked a Communist Party office in central Cuba on Saturday. A state-run newspaper reported in a rare outburst of public dissent triggered by blackouts exacerbated by the U.S. oil blockade. A rally against power cuts and food shortages began peacefully in the city of Moron. I'm a child. Late on Friday, when turned violent in the early hours of Saturday morning. Videos on social media showed a large fire and people throwing rocks through the windows of a building as voices shouted "Liberty" in the background. Reuters was able to verify the location of one videos in I can't help it now, which is on Cuba's northern coast about 250 miles east of the capital of Havana, near the tourist resort of Cayo Coco. Checks showed it was recent, but could not pinpoint the exact date. The protest appeared to provoke a response from Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel, who said later in the day on social media that anger over prolonged power outages was understandable, but warned against violence. Now, this is funny because the timing of it is interesting. So all of a sudden, this random riot breaks out where they start damaging the Communist Party building, the office building over there. But the timing is convenient because Cuba's government said on Friday it had begun talks with Washington to try and defuse the crisis. This riot, a rare one, began the moment that Cuba started making or started talking deals with Washington. If you're, and I just want you to think in this direction, if you're somebody who opposes the Communist Party and wants help to be free from all of this, so you can actually get some prosperity and breathing room, which we know Cuba has been getting strangled as it is, why would you start a riot the moment you hear information that Cuba is talking to Washington about doing exactly what you want? That doesn't make sense, does it? Doesn't make sense. So is it a legit riot? Something smells. Again, that's not one of those things where I'm just... It's just one of those things. That's how my brain works. That doesn't make any sense. Because if you're somebody who truly wants help from Washington or from somebody to come in and free you from the Communist Party, why on earth would you then begin rioting the moment that you hear that talks are happening for exactly what you want? That doesn't make any sense, because that's just going to cause more problems. So, again, that's how my brain works on this stuff. Like, sometimes 2 and 2 don't make sense. They don't make 4. We'll see. I still think that the United States is going to snag up Cuba because, as Pete Hegseth confirmed, they're looking to create the technate. They're calling it something different, but they're looking to make the technate. All right. Out of the war, and let's take a look at a few of these other little nuggets of information. First up, DC National Guard activates dedicated unit for Capitol security. This is pretty interesting. It says the DC National Guard has inaugurated a new unit to protect civil authorities and infrastructure in the nation's capital. The 260th Special Purpose Brigade was formally launched in early March during a ceremony at the DC Armory, where its colors were uncased, marking the unit's official entry into service. Brand new unit. Created following Executive Order 14339, which is the violence and crime in DC executive order, and advice from the Department of Defense, the group will serve as a central office that will punish interoperability between military forces and public security agencies, reinforcing safety in the U.S. Capitol. This is the medium group between U.S. military and law enforcement in D.C. Now, if you remember, there's a few executive orders that we've seen and policy directions we've seen in the past that have to do with making it so when the U.S. military, or in this case, this National Guard unit, is working with law enforcement, they have the ability to fatally shoot U.S. citizens. That was a while ago, but it's there. Don't forget it. The brigade also highlights the DCNG's unique federal role, which requires it to report directly to the president rather than to a state or territorial governor. Not only that, this unit works directly with the president. Nobody else. Fascinating. This unit provides the critical command and control structure that enables us to execute a broad spectrum of scalable operations while effectively integrating with our federal and district partners. The 260th Special Purpose Brigade brings a level of coordination and readiness that allows federal law enforcement and the National Guard to operate as a unified team when security demands it. Federal law enforcement, National Guard. Colonel Lawrence Doane, commander of the brigade, described the development as a significant milestone, saying that the unit's structure allows for continuous coordination with partner organizations while staying ready to quickly scale up if operations needed. Scale up if things advance forward and they need to expand. Interesting. Now keep in mind, this is going active now. And if you guys don't remember, we talked about this... Gosh, this was what? 4 or 5 months ago? 6 months ago? Somewhere in there? I can't remember. But do you guys remember we were talking about how there was a secret order going around from the Pentagon to create and train rapid response forces from the National Guard in all 50 states by April 1st, 2026. And then when Hegseth was asked about that question, he never confirmed nor denied it. It's interesting that this group just happens to be going live, a brand new one based on executive order that's built to work with local law enforcement and takes orders directly from the president, right before just a couple weeks before August 1st, when all of those quick reaction forces in all 50 states are supposed to be ready to go. Again, it seems to me they are building up to something. I don't know what it is. I think it's just speculation at this point. But it sure seems like they are stacking brick upon brick for something, whatever it is. And the timing of all this stuff is very convenient. Very convenient, especially with that war now happening. Have all these quick reaction forces ready to go. And then all of a sudden, Iranian sleeper cell comes alive. So all these things go at the same time. You know, it's stuff like that is just, again, things to think about. Just gnaw on that stuff. Just gnaw on it. Along with that, which may have some ties to it all, says Bondi is said to be to move to military housing because of threats. Says the Attorney General relocated from a Washington apartment to a base in the area within the past month, joining a whole bunch of other Trump administration leaders. Attorney General Pam Bondi has quietly relocated to one of several military bases in the Washington area where other Trump administration officials also live after facing threats from drug cartels. Yeah, from drug cartels, right. And critics of her actions in handling the Jeffrey Epstein case. Ms. Bondi moved from an apartment in the city within the past month in response to an array of threats flagged to her by her staff of federal law enforcement. These people said, including an uptick in criticism of Ms. Bondi and threats relayed by investigators. Ms. Bondi is the latest administration official to move into heavily guarded quarters at military facilities in or near the nation's capital after citing danger from criminals, adversaries overseas, and protesters. Other officials who have relocated include Stephen Miller, President's top domestic policy advisor and the architect of his hardline immigration policy, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Kristi Noem, and exiting Homeland Security Secretary and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Daniel P. Driscoll, the Army Secretary, has also moved into military housing, as has Navy Secretary John Phelan, whose home in Washington was damaged in a fire last year. That is a lot of high-ranking Trump officials all moving into a military base. A handful of officials have made use of military facilities in this way over the past several decades, including Jim Mattis, who served as Defense Secretary for Mr. Trump during his first term, and Mike Pompeo, who served as Secretary of State during 2018 to 2021. Robert M. Gates, who served as Defense Secretary in Presidents Bush and Obama, lived in Navy housing in the Washington area for much of his tenure. But this appears to be the first administration to take such widespread advantage of taxpayer-funded military housing to accommodate political appointees who do not have a direct connection to the military. So we have a situation where this is kind of unprecedented, where almost all of the top officials that would be needed in a time of crisis have all moved onto a military base for protection. During this time, we got threats of sleeper cells going active. We've got quick reaction military, National Guard military forces getting ready to deploy in a couple weeks. All of these officials are getting moved into military housing protection. Again, this is what I mean. It's like another brick is being added where it seems like it's building towards something. And just for kicks and giggles, I went and I looked to see all of the lead Silicon Valley guys, all the major tech people who have moved out of California just recently. And you're looking at about 10 of them. Main dudes, Zuckerberg, Peter Thiel, Sergey Brin, Sam Altman have all moved out of California. It's like they're being told, get out of certain places, get to certain places. Because it's like something is getting built up towards something. That's what I'm talking about. I just have this, I don't know. It's just a weird feeling. And again, I don't necessarily like going off on speculation and on things that we don't necessarily have any information on. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I think it's going to be this or I think it's going to be that. All I'm telling you is the information that I'm collecting and putting together and how I'm seeing the stuff and the timing of it. It just seems like it's building up to something. I could be wrong, though. I could be wrong. It's just a gut feeling. Just a gut feeling. All right. Just a couple more things. Let's take a look at what's going on with the VA. Now, I know there's some people who use the VA. I know there's some people who watch who have family that uses the VA. All I can tell you is I'm sorry for what this government is doing to you, because the changes that they're making, I mean, again, this is like the third or fourth policy change that I have seen or come across that they just don't care about you at all. Hundreds of VA therapists quit over Trump policies, leaving veterans in crisis. Mental health care access for veterans has become increasingly difficult as the VA loses hundreds of psychologists and social workers. As somebody who used to drive a cab, and I took many, many, many veterans to the VA for various reasons, including some of them for PTSD and mental issues, I can tell you that this is not good. As the Department of Veteran Affairs struggles with staffing shortages, hundreds of mental health care providers have left the agency, citing disagreements with new administration policies under President Trump. This has led to longer wait times, reduced appointment lengths, and a lack of access to one-on-one therapy for many veterans in need of mental health support. The exodus of therapists and social workers from the VA has severely impacted the agency's ability to provide adequate mental health care to veterans, many of whom rely on the VA as their primary or only source of such services. After President Trump returned to office, the VA announced plans to overhaul the agency and cut thousands of jobs. While frontline mental health workers were largely spared, hundreds chose to leave anyways. And as we've gone over in the past, some of that has to do with them actually being replaced by AI. The VA has lost around 500 psychologists and psychiatrists, 500 psychologists and psychiatrists, as well as nearly 700 social workers over the past year. This has led to increased workloads, shortened appointment times, and replacement of one-on-one therapy with large group sessions at many VA facilities. You know, for the administration that's all about war, military, they seem to be abandoning all of their veterans in any way, shape, or form that they possibly can. Pretty fascinating. But if we add it to this, we talked about this when this report first came out, but it seems to be pretty evident because top Trump official reveals intention for federal workers put them in trauma. Do you guys remember this? I think we talked about this 6 or 7 months ago. Might have been a little bit longer, but this was Russell Voigt who came out and specifically said he wants to put federal workers in trauma, in traumatic situations. Yeah, this is what's going on because it specifically mentions the VA. Donald Trump's Office of Management and Budget Director, Russell Voigt, has summed up the administration's attitudes towards federal workers. We want to put them in trauma. A new page report by the AFL-CIO, which contains that vote, quote, could easily apply it to the whole country. Federal worker or not, federal program or not, federal service or not. The report terms Trump's crusade to upend government and its services purposeful cruelty. This is part of his Project 2025 plan, which Russell was one of the writers for it. And it's interesting because among the report's findings and examples of pain and trauma, veterans get really hurt both in and out of the federal government. Musk and Doge fired 80,000 Department of Veteran Affairs workers, depriving them of jobs and veterans they serve of vital cash through disability payments and or medical facilities for the aftermath of serious injuries incurred only in battle. So not only does this hurt the veterans, but it's also putting the VA workers who are still there in a point of constant chaos. Not enough time to do the things that they need to, essentially creating the environment that Russell Vogt wanted to do when it came to federal workers. And it's interesting that this whole Doge situation has to do with trying to save money and whatnot, which they told us they said that was, which we know it was a lie. The moment that they said that, we know it was false. But they said it's about saving money, and they went and fired all these people, federal workers and whatnot, and somehow our spending has increased. Our military budget has skyrocketed. We're getting more in the debt. We're spending more than we ever have. But yet we're having issues. I don't know if people realize this. Did you guys know the government is still partially shut down? Did you guys know that? You may have missed it because of all the chaos that's been happening, specifically at the war. But yeah, the government is still partially shut down. Like TSA, they're not getting paid, which, well, we're not going to start that. But still, aviation workers not getting paid. DHS, even though they're still out there doing what they're doing, that's still technically shut down. But yet our spending has only gone up. Speaking of the economy, we got another update regarding private credit. Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan turned cautious on private credit as redemptions surge. So if you guys don't remember, we just did a report about how BlackRock and Blue Owl froze investors from withdrawing money from private credit funds. Blackstone is doing something partial to that. So Blackstone, BlackRock, and Blue Owl are all blocking investors from grabbing their money out of their investment funds. Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan have now joined the party. Now this is important because the private credit is what the entire global economy runs on. Everybody runs on credit. The governments run on credit. The banks run on credit. The citizens run on credit. The stores and commerce runs on credit. Everything runs on credit. And this is where we're starting to see the red flags. Now, you guys remember 2008 with the mortgage crash, that whole situation? Well, that was just mortgages. That was only one section. Private credit is in everything. And it's been slammed into everybody's 401ks and everybody's pensions and all of that. Which means if credit collapses, the whole thing goes down. And credit is looking so bad right now that the major banks are blocking investors from pulling money out of private credit. That's significant. Now, like all financial things, I always say that doesn't mean that tomorrow the entire economy is going to blow up. This economy has been held back by the literal hand of God for years. And he's not going to let it go until it's time for it to go. So don't take this as some type of crazy panic thing and start running around like your hair is on fire type of thing. That's not what this is about. But it's something to just keep in mind that the economy situation is progressing towards catastrophe. But I always stand by Matthew 24. And I know this is the odd view of it, but this is where I stand because when I read the Bible in context and literally, this is what it's about. That during this time that we're in right now, before the rapture and before the start of the day of the Lord, everybody's going to be like the days of Noah, going around eating, drinking, being merry, going about their daily lives, and then chaos ensues. So, I don't believe that we're going to witness the global economy crash while the church is still here. I don't see it. And again, that's something that most Christians disagree with because they go with tradition over what Scripture says, and that's fine. You're willing to believe what you want. But to me, I find comfort in that because that's what the Scripture says. So, all right. Just a couple things on government corruption, and then we're out of here. So, Pentagon headhunting Goldman and JP Morgan bankers for economic defense unit. What? But according to Trump, we're in the golden age, and this is the greatest economy ever. So why on earth is the Pentagon looking for an economic defense unit? Something funky up in here, as the 90s rappers would say. I have no idea. The Pentagon is building a new team of investment bankers steeped in private equity to invest $200 billion over 3 years in defensive deals. The Defense Department is specifically going after Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, and Bank of America as prime recruiting targets for the 30-person team. The headhunter brief outlines explaining that this is not a career move, but a 2 to 3 year secondment program. The document prepared by search firm Heidrick & Struggles. It's really funny. Are you sure that you would want to be involved with a firm called Struggles? Because my first question would be, are you going to struggle to find me what I need to find? Sorry. I've lost my mind, and I'm a child. The search firm Heidrick & Struggles pitches a chance to serve your country and deploy more capital than most investors deploy in their entire careers, and ostensibly an opportunity to sell a bunch of stock tax deferred. President Trump has long harbored aspirations of directing a massive sovereign wealth fund akin to Gulf and Asian countries using private capital to wield political power. Again, go and take a look at what happened with Wall Street, Hitler, and the Reich Bank. Go. If you're bored and you got about an hour to just go and search and read some stuff, go take a look at the relationship between Hitler, Wall Street, specifically some people from like JP Morgan and whatnot, and what they did with the Reich Bank. Yes, Wall Street bankers not only funded the Allies, but they also funded the Axis. You won't learn that in your high school history book. But again, it's just another one of those small little indicators that showed that World War II was orchestrated. Pretty interesting. Well, guess what? Trump's wanting to do the exact same thing that Hitler did back then with Wall Street. Just not gold-backed. That was the only difference. The Reich Bank was gold-backed. This one's not. Interesting. Enter Wall Street, which employs thousands of coverage bankers who stay close to companies in specific industries. Forming its own sponsor coverage unit inside the Pentagon would allow the Defense Department to have a team of its own bankers that serve as private equity firms and pitch deals critical to national security, private advice, and arranged loans. Yes, you are literally looking at a system where Trump is trying to invite 30 Wall Street bankers into the Pentagon to invest in private military opportunities. Because that's not going to go wrong in any way. They joined Deputy Secretary of Defense Stephen Feinberg, the billionaire co-founder of Cerberus, who, interesting name, being the Greek mythic three-headed dog, who has been reshaping the way the Pentagon operates and wielding the agency's influence over defense primes that critics argue grew too complacent. Feinberg has been driving the whole ship. A well-placed industry official told Semaphores Ben Smith last November, all roads lead to the deputy secretary. Many of the Trump administration's investment in private companies have been overseen by the Pentagon. Now, again, there is a specific F word that this coincides with. It's called fascism. That's exactly what this is. This is fascism to the literal core. Fascism is a very large political ideology, but this is literally like the core of it. You cannot deny it anymore that the United States government, through the Trump administration, has gone full fascist. And if you're denying it, again, you're staring at a monster where the mask has been taken off, willing to be devoured, because you don't want to see the reality of the situation. It gets worse, though, because if we take a look at this, we get a little bit more detail about it. Wall Street bankers offer lucrative access to join the Pentagon. Wait, where's it at? What do you have to say, Billy Mays?
But I'm not done yet. Call right now, and I'll triple the offer.
A headhunting presentation aimed at recruiting Wall Street investment bankers to the Pentagon dangled access to government officials and foreign royal families that could be used to raise capital in the future. So this isn't just a situation of trying to put together Wall Street to invest in defense contracts and invest in weaponry and stuff like that. Now they're saying, if you come in and you do this, if you work with us, we will give you special access to certain government officials and foreign royal families. This is the same thing that the Trump family and the Kushner group and the Witkoff family have all been doing, and now they're going to offer it to 30 Wall Street bankers. We'll give you special access to these people so you can start benefiting and making deals on the side because you are investing in the Pentagon. I stand by what I said, man. Of all the history that I've looked at when it comes to the United States governments and the different administrations and stuff like that, the Trump administration, bar none, just head and shoulders the most corrupt U.S. government administration I have ever seen in my life. And I've done a lot of digging on historic administrations, but the corruption of this administration is just beyond anything that I've ever seen. It's remarkable. This is lawlessness. This is lawlessness. Scripture said, look for the lawlessness. Found it. Staring right at it. But it's interesting because all the pastors and churches that talk about we got lawlessness everywhere refuse to talk about it. Now, let's talk about Tucker Carlson again for the 30th time this week. Let's do that, shall we? Y'all need to go back over to that one place, the town called Moron. You guys need to go over there. Anyways, throwback. Anyways, the presentation said that the Pentagon is seeking to build a 30-person investment team to deploy up to $200 billion in government investments over the next 3 years. Joining the team offers unmatched access to top-level government officials and privileged information flow. Whatever you need, you can get. Seriously. That's what they're saying to these Wall Street guys. Come in, invest in the Pentagon, and guess what? We'll give you top-level access to government officials and royal families, and you'll get privileged information, and whatever you need, you can get. I believe that's called insider trading. If you ever want to raise your own fund, you will gain access to fundraising channels that include royal families and foreign sovereign contacts. Like, you just can't make this up. You just can't make this up. Hunter Wool Tucker is bad, though. Yeah, he's bad, but do we need to literally avoid every single other topic that's happening in the world right now to hound about the latest thing that he said week in and week out? He's a distraction, and the pastors are distracting you by talking about something that in the end doesn't mean anything. They're avoiding all other information, keeping you blind and away from the actual stuff that's happening in order to talk about a distraction. That's what's going on with it. There's nothing to do with is he good or is he bad? We know he's bad. It just has to do with the fact of you're wasting time talking about something that doesn't need to be talked about because you're spending hours upon hours, weeks after weeks talking about this and avoiding all other information that's so important. And you wonder why the church is so blind to what's actually happening in the world right now? That would be why. Okay. Last two things. Top DoD official in charge of the Golden Dome for America project has financial ties to contractors. Speaking of more corruption, thousands of companies are jockeying for billions of dollars in the Defense Department contracts to build a shield designed to intercept and destroy missiles launched at the United States. At least 4 of the companies awarded contracts so far are owned by Cerberus Capital Management. Didn't we just read something about that? Private equity firm founded by billionaire Steve Feinberg, who's Deputy Secretary of Defense, who until last year ran the company and is now Deputy Secretary of Defense, the second highest ranking official in the Pentagon. Remember, he's the one that's steering the ship, as they say. Feinberg oversees the office in charge of the Golden Dome for America project, which is modeled on Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system. Feinberg filed paperwork saying he divested from Cerberus and its related businesses, but his government ethics records contain an unusual clause. He is allowed to continue contracting with the company for tax compliance and accounting services, as well as healthcare coverage. A financial relationship that documents show that could continue indefinitely. And what do we call that? Conflict of interest. That's what we call it. It's a conflict of interest. On his first day back in office, Trump rescinded an executive order signed by President Joe Biden that required his appointees to comply with an ethics pledge. The pledge barred them from working on issues related to their former lobbying topics or clients for 2 years. Weeks later, Trump fired 17 inspector generals charged with investigating fraud, corruption, and conflicts of interest across the federal government. We've covered all this stuff already. This is just a refresher. Around the same time, he removed the head of the Office of the Government of Ethics, the agency that oversees ethics compliance throughout the executive branch. The office is currently without a head or a chief of staff, because he needed to rescind that executive order and get rid of all of those people, because him and his administration needed to come in there and find any way possible to use the government in order to personally benefit themselves and their families. The documents help show that senior executive branch officials, including Attorney General Pam Bondi, made well-timed securities trades, at times selling stocks just before markets plunged because of Trump-announced new tariffs. Insider trading. Other disclosures revealed that 2 high-ranking scientists at the Environmental Protection Agency, who recently helped downgrade the agency's assessment of the health risks of formaldehyde, had previously held senior positions at the chemical industries leading the trade group, benefiting their friends. Trump has appointed more than 200 people who collectively owned, either by themselves or with their spouses, between $175 million and $340 million in cryptocurrency investments at the time they filed their disclosures. Some of those appointees now hold positions overseeing or influencing regulations of the crypto industry. Imagine that. They hold all that cryptocurrency, take positions of power in order to steer it in a direction that they can make a boatload of money. Among them are Todd Blanche, Trump's former criminal defense attorney and now the second highest ranking official in the Justice Department. Blanche's disclosure record showed that he owned at least $159,000 in crypto-related assets last year when he shut down investigations into crypto companies, dealers, and exchanges, protecting his investments. See, this is the stuff that all those pro-Trump pastors don't want you to know. They don't want you to know this. They want to hide this, because this is the stuff that makes them look bad. Because some of them like to go on Sunday and pound their fist on the pulpit saying you are being disobedient to God. Some of them saying that you may lose your salvation if you don't vote for Trump, like Jack Hibbs did, which I showed that video, which some of the people that asked for that video, I sent it to them, and then I got an email back saying that I was still lying. Who's in reality now? Conflicts of interest have long plagued both Democratic and Republican administrations, but ethics experts say Trump's second term marks a sharp break from modern norms. I agree with that one. His Golden Dome for America imagines a battery of weapons deployed from land, sea, air, and space and able to destroy missiles launched at the United States. In December, the Defense Department started selecting companies for the project, for which it had allocated as much as $151 billion. So far, the agency has granted awards for more than 2,000 firms. Cerberus owns or is a majority investor in at least 4 of them: Northwind, Stratolaunch, Red River Technology, and NetCentrics Core. Fascism. Last but not least, how about this one? A Trump World Events company is raking in millions in federal contracts. Take a look at this one. Can I make it a little bit bigger for you guys to make it easier to read? There we go. All right. An events company whose associates help stage the January 6, 2021 rally has signed contracts worth over $26 million with the United States government. Since President Donald Trump's return to the White House, Event Strategies, a Virginia-based firm with deep ties to Trump World, has negotiated a contract with the General Services Administration that could be worth up to $100 million over the next 15 years. It's a remarkable rise for the 26-year-old firm, which until recent windfall had received what appeared to be around $50,000 in government contracts over the past decade. So this event has only earned about $50,000 in government contracts over 10 years. Then they host the January 6th rally. And then ever since then, Trump has been leasing them out, contracting them out, both for government and private events. It also appears that Event Strategies won these new contracts with very little competition. According to HireGov, a tool used by contractors to track federal and state contracts, Event Strategies was the only company to bid on 8 of the 11 contracts tracked by the site. That would be a no-bid contract, which in this case would be illegal, but they're hiding it. It can't be done when it comes to federal contracts like that. Many of the recent contracts are related to America's 250th, or America 250, an 18-month-long commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. That dude's got some little dinosaurs on the table. Sorry, got distracted. I'm a child. The tenure of the America 250 celebrations have already proven controversial. Over the last few months, large banners ostensibly tied to the project were seen hanging from federal buildings all over Washington, D.C. One banner, which was hung outside the Department of Justice, features the tagline, "Make America Safe Again," alongside a massive image of Trump's face. The Department of Justice said that the banner was hung to celebrate 250 years of our great country. To many, the tagline was an indication that the Justice Department had failed to maintain its independence during Trump's second term. In early March, banners featuring Charlie Kirk, Booker T. Washington, and Catherine Beecher were hung outside the Department of Education near Capitol Hill, alongside 2 large banners featuring the America 250 logo. It says, when Trump lost the 2020 election, Event Strategies was on hand. Co-founder Tim Oons was listed as the stage manager for the January 6th rally at the Ellipse in 2021. And it says Megan Power Small, who is now the chief of staff at Event Strategies, once tagged on rally permit paperwork as the event's operation manager for scheduling and guidance. Justin Corpali was listed as the project manager of the event, though Corpali was later described as the Event Strategy CEO and company's managing partner. He had previously worked as a director of operations for Melania Trump in 2018 and the Trump campaign in 2020. So another case of all of Trump's buddies who own this thing getting paid massive amounts of money because he's the president. While out of office, Trump continued working with Event Strategies. The company produced many of Trump's campaign rallies during 2024 presidential campaign. Filings from that year show Event Strategies received $31 million from the Trump 47 committee PAC over a 7-month period. Corpali's Instagram account also shows him associating with Trump administration officials, including some at his own rallies. And it goes on, December 2024, after Trump won the re-election, he named Corpali his executive producer for major events. And in 14 months since that appointment, Event Strategy has received a dozen contracts worth up to almost $27 million. And it just keeps on going. In contrast, Event Strategy received 0 contracts during the Biden administration, and even in the final years of previous Trump's administration, he only received, the Event Strategy has only received about $33,000. And Corpali, who's connected to Event Strategy, actually receives money from the Republican National Committee. He gets paid by them too. It's crazy. It's crazy what we're witnessing right now. We've got evil, sinful men being absolutely brutal to each other. We got government corruption so thick that there's just sludge pouring out of every official government building all over the world. We have false flags to kill innocent lives in order to push elitist agenda forward. We've got constant lies being pushed in every direction. We got information blackouts in order to hide and deceive people. We got threats of taking away the ability to share true information because it doesn't make a certain organization or government or group look good. And it's just lawlessness and sinfulness and darkness just taking over this world right now. But this is exactly what we were told the last days were going to look like. I'll be honest, I didn't think we were going to get this far into it, but here we are. Obviously, God has us here for a reason, and we need to keep that in mind and continue to move forward and do what he has commanded us to do, to be watchmen, to warn of what is going on, and to go out and do the Great Commission, which is to share the gospel and to make disciples. Keep that in the forefront of your mind. Continue to keep your head on a swivel and pay attention. Don't get caught off guard. Don't get fooled into the deceitfulness and the rumor mills and the false information and the clouded judgment and all these things. Don't fall into that. It's getting much, much more difficult to stay away from that, but we got to do what we got to do. And ultimately, if you guys are watching this and you don't know the Lord, well, I can tell you that you're toast if you don't. It's the only hope, the only way to life, and it's the only thing that you can have that's worth anything. And it's a free gift that is given by only Jesus Christ. And it's through his gospel, which is as simple as ABC. A is you admit that you're a sinner, the act of repentance, metanoia, changing of mind, turning from self to Christ. It's through repentance that allows us to have true belief in Jesus Christ, because how can you believe in Jesus Christ as your Savior, the one who removes the sin and gives you life, if you first don't understand why you need Christ? So it's through this repentance, this changing of mind, that allows true belief in Jesus Christ. You believe that Jesus Christ is the one and only begotten Son of God, that he came down 100% man, 100% God, the God-man, the one and only, which means he was the only one qualified to carry the sins of the world upon his shoulders to the cross, where he took our place upon that cross. And it was our sins that drove the nails. And it was there that he was crucified and he died. But because there is power in the blood of Jesus Christ, and he did exactly as he said, promised, and prophesied that he would, he defeated death and rose again on the third day. For all who believe in him shall not perish, but live forever in his presence and in his glory. The glory is his. He did it, not us. It's not something we can earn, not something that we can buy, not something that we can transact. There's nothing that we can do. He did it, and he offers it freely for all those who place their faith in him. And you place your faith, your belief in Christ Jesus, in his death, burial, and resurrection, in his spilled blood, and the finished work to telestai upon that cross. And see, as you call upon the Lord, when we receive salvation, we are given an incredible supernatural gift of prayer that gives us direct access to the throne room of God, where we can go to our Heavenly Father at any moment of any day. We can speak with him. So much so that he desires to hear from us unceasingly. I don't even believe that's a word, but it works. He wants to speak with us. "24 hours, 7 days a week." What an amazing God. What an amazing Heavenly Father. And we say, Lord God, thank you. Thank you, God, for allowing us to be in these times right now, as just perilous and dark and sinful and sinister that these days are right now. And for a lot of people, it's getting harder and harder by the day, with many issues, wide-ranging issues just stacking up. We thank you for allowing us to see these times that you described in your word as something real. God, we ask, give us the strength as we go about our times, about our days, and the endurance to continue to run the race until you decide our ticket's either been pulled or you send your son to take us home. God, you are so good. We give you all the glory. And we thank you, Lord Jesus. We ask that you please come soon. Maranatha. Amen. Amen. All right. We went super late today. We have a few questions. I'll see if there's a couple that we can kind of get through here. Doesn't take too long. Let's see here. Stephen Matthews, do you think Israel is paying for armed resistance for civilians or for citizens in Iran? Paying for armed resistance. I'm guessing, are you asking, is Israel paying for like the protesters that were going on there? I don't know if they're paying people, maybe, probably. But as things progressed further, specifically now, it sure seemed like those protests weren't as organic as we were led to believe. And it was an opportunity for them to rise something up, stir something up, which gave them the, I don't want to say permission, but it gave them the opportunity to go in and start what they did. So whether it was the United States, whether it was Israel, whether it was some other Gulf country combination, we don't necessarily know. But as far as the protesters go, it doesn't look organic, especially since now is when they should be uprising and taking things over, and they're not. Currently, what we're seeing right now, with the limited information that we have, is it's actually the pro-regime people that are out in the streets right now. So pretty interesting. I think that was the question that you're asking. I hope that answers it. Question. So all this drone stuff in California is our government, right? I'm guessing, was it our government that had to do? That's the consensus that I came to. Everything seems to lean and stack in the direction that it was, and they were attempting a false flag that may have fell through, got exposed, something like that. But yeah, that did not look organic at all. Patrick Starr question. When a false flag attack happens in the U.S., would you anticipate a 9/11 style nationalistic response, like where everyone suddenly 100% supports the military to preserve peace and safety? I tend to go where if they were to do something, I don't think it would be in line with 9/11 where it might just be one strike. I think they would do multiple in various locations to cause chaos. That's how my mind kind of goes. So I think it would be on a destruction level and a emphasized level of 9/11, but I don't think it would be one central thing. I think it would be multiple if they were to do something. That's how I would look at it. And so I don't know if there would be as far as citizens go, I don't know if there would be some massive support rally. There might be, or I don't know if it would just be total chaos and then lockdown at that point. It could go in so many different ways. And I think it depends. I think they would steer I think they would have multiple plans and steer it in the direction of what they're given as a reaction. I think that's how it would go. What that reaction would be, I'm not sure. that tied us to life. What happened to the Ukraine-Russia war? That just dropped off the map. Oh, it's still there. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was some big meeting between Zelensky and what's his name? Pahlavi. They did some meeting today, which was why I don't know, but yeah, they did some meeting. But that's still going on, and I think it's just sitting there in the back burner, waiting for the green light for Putin to start moving forward on the Europe side of things. I think that's what's going on, but it's still sitting there. It's just buried under everything else. Last question. Charlotte Marshall, did you ever hear that Adam ate the fruit because he knew Eve would die outside the garden without him? So he sacrificed his pleasant life for her? Did you ever hear that Adam ate the fruit because he knew Eve would die outside the garden without him? That doesn't make any sense because Eve was the one who took the first bite and then gave it to Adam. So, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Where'd you hear that from? I'm curious. Charlotte Marshall, where'd you hear that from? That's an odd one. I've heard a lot of different variations of the Garden of Eden story, but that's an odd one. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Like that's not even Gnostic. I don't even know what that is. That's weird. Yeah, I've never heard it before. I heard it now though. All right, guys. That's all we got. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. I appreciate you all. Usual spiel, if you guys can, like, share, subscribe. Get this out to as many people that you can. Again, this is not about building up numbers or getting butts in seats, but this is about getting the warning out to people and getting people to Jesus. So do me a solid if you guys can to like, share, subscribe so we can reach some of those people who have ears to hear and are willing to hear what's going on and hopefully give their lives to the Lord if they haven't. So thank you for that. Also, follow on Rumble and Telegram. Those are my backup channels. If I get booted off YouTube, we'll be backup live streaming over on Rumble, and then Telegram, post updates, announcements, and other little things that I can't necessarily put in video format. I throw up over there. So, yeah, if you'd like to follow along, those links are below. If not, no worries. Just make sure you guys bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. It's your one-stop shop to stay up to date on what's going on with the Wretched Watchmen world of things. You'll find the latest podcasts and live streams. You'll find the latest or the announcement page there. You'll find the free book to download and all that type of jazz. So those things are definitely available on the website. So make sure you guys bookmark the page. And last but not least, if you guys like to support this channel and what I got going on, I got donation links down below. CashApp, Venmo, and GiveSendGo. This channel is not monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. It runs solely off of your guys' generous donations. So again, you guys are the ones that make everything free with this. You guys are the ones that make this work. A lot of stuff going on, and I'm not able to do it without your help and your support. So thank you guys for your donations, your prayers, your encouragement. And I certainly appreciate it. So, all right, that's it. Tomorrow's Sunday. Get your heathenic, wretched, misfit booties to church tomorrow, whether online, in person, doesn't matter. As long as it's a Bible believing Christ following church, get there. And yeah, head on a swivel, faith in the Lord, and just keep pushing through. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out. Maranatha.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.